Exploding Heads Horror Movie Podcast, episode number 206. 206. I'm Dave Z.
Hey, everybody. I'm Christian, a.k.a. Brandon.
Yay.
I'm now
Don't
two
tease.
in one. Yeah.
Don't tease about Brandon. People don't like that, you know?
No, I told you. I said it in the show. We were going to do it, and we did it.
You did?
Yeah.
No, it's good. It's
Although
smart.
he did mention that there was a possibility of him coming on that episode, but then it never happened.
He might. I hear you. You never know what's going on with him. I don't know if he's sleeping right or something. I mean, join the club. That's fucking... Yeah, it's probably safe to say that I'm more fucked up than him now. So there you have it.
So I'm going to be doing this show by myself. I'll just get Vince, and this will just turn this from TJF into Exploding Heads, TJF 13 horror movie podcast.
Shit. Oh, I just spilled coffee. I laughed and I spilled coffee all over myself.
That's a waste of Timmy's.
Right. Yeah. It's fucking, you heard of alcohol abuse. It's coffee abuse.
I can't even do that. You have this background. You have to hold everything that you want to show in front of you.
Oh, man. I got to wipe off. See what I'm saying? I am fucked up. I'm just having number one, I'm a little bit under the weather, but as I was just saying to Christian before he came on, and this happened when he would, the thing is, if I treat it right away, I'm usually okay, but I'm allergic to smoke. I'm not supposed to smoke. And the thing is, if I smoke weed, I have to do it a certain way and not inhale too deeply or not. It's a certain thing, or if it reaches like the back of the throat, and if I inhale too deeply or it's too dirty of a hit, I gotta get it out right away. If I hold it in, it'll go like up my fucking throat, right directly. I can feel the smoke rising through my ear canal. It'll go right into it. And then typically when I was in the casino industry, because I couldn't help it because I'm around cigar smoke and whatnot. It would just randomly happen. And they used to say I had chronic sinusitis. It was just me being around smoke, and I'm not supposed to be around it. And it would always start off with an earache. And now I've learned over the course of time how to treat it. If I treat it right away, it's fine. And this is what it is. I have to take when I get a little earache and a little throat scratch, I got to take a Benadryl at bed.
You got to treat that girl right.
That's right. You sure do.
What movie?
Treat him right. Treat him good.
You know what
I know that.
Yeah.
I 100% know it, but I can't. But it's not forming.
She deserves to be treated right. I think that is how it goes.
I
did treat her right. I did treat her right.
I treated her. Yeah,
Friday. I don't know what the fuck happened.
The final chapter.
There you go.
You know. Just he had a little more. Treat her right. So I gotta treat myself right. And then the thing is, you gotta take a Benadryl at bedtime. And when you wake up in the morning,
BJ Zandano.
You gotta take BJ. You broke up with BJ
Zandano?
BJ Zandano? Yeah, that would be some real rich guys talking about me. Like it's almost like a fucking some ring. You know how they have like human trafficking and right, that would be me, the guy that will suck dick for fucking whatever 500
pesos.
grand or some shit. Well, not pesos. No. Well, maybe enough, but so it's Benadryl at bedtime and Claritin in the morning. That is the reason I know this. There was a time where I could not kick it for like fucking 2 months. No matter what I took, I could not beat this shit. I was sick. And it was right at the height of smoking. And I was like, what the fuck? And even if I was stopped smoking weed, I just couldn't kick it. And I was doing this. I was doing Dayquil and NyQuil. Then I switched over to Alka-Seltzer Plus and something else. And I kept doing it. And finally, I went to the hospital. And I said, listen, I cannot shake this.
I can't smoke weed without feeling like shit. Doc, help me.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Snoop, what did Dr. Snoop say?
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. Went to see lip shits. I fucked our own. Yeah.
And I do. Well, I can't take them anymore. At least the ones that I get from my friend are great, but I haven't seen my friend in a little bit. But the stuff they sell at the reservation, this is the whole fucking thing, man. You know what they do to me? They make me real tired and they come on real strong, even when it's a tiny dose. It's like a third of what I would usually take for regular edibles. But these edibles, and I've tried 2 different brands from the res, they're so strong and they make me really tired. It comes on real strong. It makes me really tired, even if it's 25% of what I usually take. That something's up here, right? So now, then I go to bed and I wake up middle of the night to pee and I'm spinning. And then the next day I still have spins. Spins, like fucking from being drunk. That's what
That's
it's
weird.
from
That's
fucking
never
edibles.
happened.
Never
Well,
either. Never. It happened to me once with a cookie.
Yeah.
But the bears that I usually take, the gummies, I'm fine. So I bought these brands at the res, and I took them, and they were fine. But that part of me, they weren't fine. They fucked me up. So, but here's the funny thing: Irene took one. She doesn't do it much, but she took one and a half of one, you know, and she was fine. She loved it. So I don't know what the deal is. So I'm like, what the fuck? So I went back. And I told them about it. They go, we have this other kind, try this. And I tried this, and this was even fucking worse. So now, until I hook it up with my friend, I can't take it from the res, and I have to get, smoke. So I have some smoke, and it maybe because it's a little older, and I'm doing okay, but this has always happened. And getting back to that story with the Benadryl, I was sick for a long time, and I went to the hospital, and the guy said, just that. He says, take Benadryl at bedtime and take Claritin in the morning. And wouldn't you know it, it fucking cleared up right away. So now anytime I start to feel pain in my ear, because that's the beginning of it, and a little scratchy throat, a little sneeze, that's what I do. So I did it last night. Like I have a tiny bit of pain in my ear now, but last night I didn't even want to talk. It fucking affects my tongue and everything. The pain that I get from these earaches is so bad. I'm a really good patient. I don't get like bitchy and stuff when I don't feel good. But if I have an earache or a toothache, stay the fuck away. That's the only time I'm a real asshole when I'm sick. Not an asshole. I just don't want to be bothered. You know what? I'm like, oh man, I can't do it. But usually I'm okay. So I'm waking up from Benadryl / NyQuil. I took a little tiny chug of NyQuil. Then I took a Claritin. So I should be fine.
NyQuil's like illegal or something. Just a little sip of NyQuil.
Well, because I didn't want to take a full dose. A full dose is too much when I already took a Benadryl. You know what I mean? I don't want to do that. So now, and check this out. I don't know if this is true or it's bullshit, but when I was talking to one of my psychological counselors, they ask you questions about this and then they said drug use, alcohol. I said I don't drink. I go I have weed on Friday nights typically. Although it's all going to change as of June 1st because at work they finally fucking changed the rule. DOT has finally, because we have to be DOT certified, right? They have finally, because weed's legal in New York now, changed the rule. The thing I've been saying all along, the fair way to do it, I can't believe it's happened. They are going to swab test people for drug tests when they give them to them now. So unless basically, even in a worst case scenario, I could smoke until like 10 p.m. the night before and be okay, even if they administered a test first thing in the morning for a drug test, which is the fair way to do it. Because bottom line, don't come to work high. No shit. Don't come to work drunk. Don't come to work under the influence.
And don't get high on your own supply. That's rule number one.
Ain't that the truth? You want to be a dope man, boy, you must qualify. And of course, there's the 10 crack commandments. So
the 10 crack commandments.
You know that, right? Man. Biggie Smalls?
I don't know.
What the fuck? Really?
I probably know, but I don't remember. Oh my God. I told Dave right before, it's funny that because he mentioned the Benadryl. And yeah, I too have had a weird ailment this week. But unlike Dave, I'm not going to go into it.
Well, because I can't talk about anything else. Because as we spoke before the show began, of course we're going to talk about these Cronenberg movies. But Christian saw them like so long ago, and I watched them last night. However, for whatever reason, I only have so many notes, and it's not an indication on my feelings towards the movie or anything. I
get it. You
know what I mean? It's these particular movies. There isn't a whole lot. There's stuff to say, but there isn't. It's not like talking about other movies. I don't think, or other Cronenbergs. Now, if we're talking Videodrome or fucking, like you said.
I mean, there's been arguments for both of these, and I mentioned watching the show redo of the Cronenberg film. And it's funny, there are people that are like right there with me and think it was a great sort of update recreation of it, and other ones say, you know, like the typical naysayers, I think, for remakes just said this was unnecessary. We got to stop Amazon Prime from doing this. So all these classic movies, and everything, and it doesn't hold a candle to it. I mean, I didn't feel, well, I have no problem with any remake or revision. You know, you judge it on its own merit and whatever. And I'm not going to say it wasn't slow and leisurely paced, as I'd like to say. It is.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think there was a lot of weight to it. And I liked what they did with the update, the switching of gender roles and everything. And I think, and I said it delivered more on the uncomfortable horror, because that's really reserved for 2 sequences in Dead Ringers, kind of. And I don't know if you disagree with that. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong.
No, I agree.
The feeling of the movie,
100.
There's there. Like, I mean, and the performance is strong, but there's really only 2 horrific elements. It's very much more of a drama with horrific elements in, because
100%.
of course it's Cronenberg. But I think the show, again, is there I go with again, a dramatic show, of course, but the horrific elements kick up a notch more so, or maybe 2 notches more so than the Cronenberg film, in my opinion. Now, does that make it better? No, but I like, from a horror fan standpoint, I thought I preferred that for sure. But better curious. Will be in the eye of the viewer, right?
Well, I'm going to be real transparent and real me, because that's all I can be. But let me ask you, do you consider these, let me ask you this question first. Do they do the game of switcheroo, like fucking on the guys now? So they both fuck the same guy and don't tell him? Is that part of the program?
They get, again, I'm trying to be cryptic so that I don't spoil it in case people are interested in watching.
Just say yes or no.
There's a commitment. Yes.
That's it. Okay.
Yes.
That's fair.
But
okay,
way different than how the movie does it.
All right.
Way different.
Okay. All right. So
like in the movie, it's pretty much, I think you know that within scene 2 of the I mean, right. I'm exaggerating a bit, but it's revealed fairly early in the script or in the film.
But going into the show, this is what I'm thinking about, because I just watched the movie and I'm like, okay, so are these girls going to do the same thing? If so, that's kind of hot. And are they attractive females? See, I know, I'm sorry, people are saying this guy's an asshole. He's talking about the female's looks. I can't help it. I'm just a red-blooded male who's attracted to a female. No, Patriots.
If the Patriots want you canceled, they just leave. That's the best part of the whole Patriot thing.
Yeah, but this is going to come out to the airwaves someday, and who knows? And
well, then they could just
honestly, is there something wrong with me wanting to, like? This is a serious question.
Can't say someone's good looking anymore. That's crazy.
I don't know what you can say. I'm just saying, this is the serious question. And I thought about this the other day as I was watching a movie. Okay. If you're watching a movie and it may not be the greatest movie in the world, can you still be engaged in the movie because you are so overly, or not overly, because you are so attracted to one of the people in that movie? It makes for a better watch. Like, I'm gonna hang in there and I'm like, I want to see what happens with this girl because I think she's attractive. Or does that help you watch a movie?
No, yes and no. I mean, those 2 worst movies of last year, I'd say that lead actress was attractive, but it didn't save the movie in the slightest.
Not save the movie. I'm not saying it's gonna save the movie, but maybe you're gonna be, and this sounds shitty, but maybe you're gonna be more. And I am an empath by nature, but I'm saying maybe you're going to be more empathetic to that person because you have a bit of a crush on her in a way. You know what I mean? You're like, I don't know. I can't.
I don't know. I think just based on my personality and the way that I come on films like that, no, I don't think I would. I think I mean, I might watch it if we're doing it for a podcast. I'll obviously finish.
I'm not saying the person's an asshole and you say, well, you're disregarding that because they're attractive. I'm not saying that at all. They're just a regular person in a movie. But as you're watching the movie unfold, you are more invested in the movie because you like the character, because she's, number one, a good person, but Number two, I should say the other way around, honestly, to be fair. You think that she's attractive. Like, okay, I like seeing this person on my screen, and it helps with me wanting to spend more time with the film. And instead of a 6, maybe this is going to be a 7 as a
I
result,
mean,
because
possibly, but
my
I don't think it's
attention.
I think it's not just the looks. I think it's the performance as well. Not even the attitude of the person.
Sure.
The performance, like for instance, Dead Ringers, the show is a perfect example of this, where I could see some people checking out, maybe giving it episode 1 going, I don't know if I want to go into it because of the way that it's paced. I can see a lot of people being thrown off by that pace, but I think the performance by Rachel and Chris, A.K. Scott, told me that the pronunciation is Viets, I think. Viets. I hope I'm saying that right now, because I'm going by a voicemail or voice message he sent me, that she carries it kind of like Jeremy Irons does in the film adaptation. So there you go. There's an example that carried me through, because I was very interested to see where they're going with it. But I don't know if I base it based on how she looked per se, but that may have helped. Like, for instance, I'll use A Craft as my other argument. If I didn't have to watch it for the show, I probably would have turned it off and not finished it. And there you've got a ensemble of attractive people. So
Right. See, that makes it, see, again, I think, okay, and there's also that case where if I like the story, and now a bad actor is just a bad actor. If they're that bad that I don't want to see what's going on, and I tend not to watch movies that way. Maybe some people could say some of the found footage movies I watch, maybe they're not always the best performers, but I for whatever reason, I don't want to say I give it a pass, but it just seems more believable that they're unbelievable because it's found footage. It's supposed to be real life people. So, but again, if they're overacting and you can tell they're acting, that's not good either. So I'm not gonna like take someone who's not a good actor or they're putting on a bad performance and say, oh, I don't care because I think she's so hot. It's not that basic. It's more like the story is fine. The movie's fine, everything. I'm okay with the movie. Having her on the screen makes it a little more enjoyable for me, I guess, is a way.
I'm sure we maybe subconsciously all say that, whether it's male, female, whatever it may be. I think that's human nature, right? This is why, for the longest time, mostly attractive people were stars. It's only been in the last couple of decades that you've seen, even from even coming down into television, news anchors and stuff, diversified. I'm not just talking about race. I'm talking about, there's one that has like a stammer that is on, and like you'd be like, 20 years ago, you would have never seen them on a TV, especially as a newscaster. And now it's someone like me that's like, well, well, yeah, and the victims were at this house behind me right here, and police are going to be escorting the perpetrator outside very shortly. And you're like, holy smoke! Like, but they've given them the gig. That's called, that's diversification in the biggest sense. Like, I mean,
it's like
before it was
action,
polished news anchors who, like, were captivating. They had that almost radio-esque voice and announcement, and now they branch off of that, and differently in film. I know I'm going on a tangent here, but even in film, they've got all different walks of life. I mean, we could even take it to sports. I mean, I've been watching basketball playoffs, even though the Raptors were long gone and not even really didn't even make it in. I've been watching the Denver Nuggets. They're in now. Of course, they're waiting till the other two teams finalize what's going on. And Jokic, like, is the lead guy, and he's the least attractive person you can look at.
Well, athletes is a different story. They're athletics. Talking about movies.
I just wanted to make that stupid joke that he's there. But I don't know if you're into, I don't want to switch gears, but I don't know if you watch basketball at all, or if there's only certain ones you'll watch if it's a team. But that last game for the Celtics came back and they tied it 3-3 with Miami Heat, which was just last night, was amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. No shit, huh?
So
I'm not passionate about it anymore. And I was just having a discussion not too long ago with a friend who, we loved basketball in the 80s and the 90s, and we were talking about it back then and now. I mean, all sports, period. Just what they were, and it there doesn't seem to be, like, it's like I always say, there's no soul anymore. Like, remember back in the 80s and 90s, all the basketball players and the personalities they had? Remember those t-shirts people used to wear they were like animated and they had the big head? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, vague.
Yeah,
I seem to recall. Yeah.
yeah, that was like a big thing, and we had Bird, and we had Jordan, and we had Drexler, and we had Barkley, and we had Elijah. We could go on and on with all these superstars in the 80s and 90s.
It's still there. You're just not following it.
They're still there. They're still good players, but
Yeah.
it doesn't seem. Maybe it's my age, but
Yeah, I think,
okay,
yeah,
it's
or you or your taste.
But I also just think it's like things are soulless now. Like, okay, look at it this way. I was talking about like the Bills yesterday. I was the Buffalo Bills. Okay, so the other day I was kicking it. I've been watching a lot of all I watch is Plex and YouTube. I've been watching a lot of YouTube, and I'm doing all different shit.
MB.
Pardon me, MB. Did I say Plex? See,
did.
I'm fucked up. It's the Benadryl and the NyQuil. So yeah, pardon me, MB. See, you could tell. And I'm brain fogged. But anyway, that's another story. That's why I'm fucked up, I think. How about that? But anyway.
It's a COVID talk.
No, but this is why I think I think that COVID can do something to you mentally that fucking changes you forever. I think that happened to me because it started with the fog brain, and now the fog brain is back, and I'm having these other mental fucking issues that I didn't have before, and nightmares and other things, and fucking it's fucked up. But that's another story. So, what was I saying? Sports.
Soulless sports.
What was soulless? Hold on. Okay? So I was talking about the Bills the other day. Yesterday, I was watching the Bills versus the Cleveland Browns from 1990. And it's on YouTube, and I'm texting my friends and I go, hey, look at this lineup. And I showed them like the Bills offensive lineup and the defense because the beginning of the game, on their first drives, they show it. And I go, holy shit. And I'm texting it to them. And I'm like, look at this team. And I'm like, there's no way that the talent on this team is the talent that the Bills have now, that people think they're such a great team and all that. I look at that team, look at the team from the 90s, and I'm like, holy fuck, this team that we have now doesn't even come close. And then we talked a little bit about it, and I go, maybe I feel that way because I have no connection to the Buffalo Bills nowadays like I did in the 90s and in the 80s. I don't have that same connection to them. And I'm like, is it because it's my age? See, I don't think it is, because I know diehard Bills fans. It just seems that are passionate about the team now, but it's like, I don't know, everything back then. And but see this, I don't think I'm slanting a certain way on purpose. I think this is actuality. I don't think it's me.
It might also be just the nostalgia factor too, right?
Could it be nostalgia?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it might be because for
was
baseball, I had the same thing. Baseball, I was passionate
80s...
as a kid. I don't give a crap about baseball now. I couldn't even name you any. I honestly don't think I can name any players. Does Jeter still play?
Fair. No. Fair, though.
I honestly...
I get it, though. Fuck baseball. But they are trying to speed it up again. But anyway, baseball, you're either in or you're out. And I'm out. I'm out of all of it because I don't have the time, except for football, which I'll still watch, but they won't get my money because they piss me off the way they are. But it's like, back in the day, the 80s, the late 80s and the early 90s, just life in general was different because everybody was caught up in it in the Bills, and it was an exciting time. And it should be an exciting time now with the team that's competing, but I just don't feel it in the air. Like and yes, maybe it is age and nostalgia, but I think Collins? The world... I think the world has changed. Like in the 80s and 90s, people weren't all caught up in politics. It was before social media, and it was before fucking 24-hour news. This is like a different world now where things just aren't as exciting as they were in that. And it's going to sound like old man, but a simpler time. And what people were happy. Like we were talking about this. We were watching like videos from like the 4th of July from when we were kids. And my brother remarked, he goes, look how happy all the adults were. He goes, everybody was like in a real good mood. He goes, I bet you now we're the adults. If you go to a get together and there's young kids filming, not that we're miserable, but there doesn't seem to be that extra, hey, it's the 80s. Like I like to say, what I can't, you know what I'm saying? It seems like
because everybody is consumed by their phones and social media and everything else. Like I think, like you said, it's a combination of a lot of things. Social media being one of them, 24-hour news, whether it be just from old school CNN that evolved, but I mean, it's just the fact that you can turn on your phone and find out that there was a school shooting or like something local even that happened last night. And usually it was just what you would read in the newspaper or see on the 6 o'clock news at night. And now it's like constant.
Back when it was
it's
6
constant.
o'clock news.
Yeah.
Now the puppeteers have taken over. The political parties, Politico, are fucking having everybody doing this, having them going at it with each other. You know what I mean? It's very transparent to see this now. When back then, people didn't talk about that stuff. You know what I mean? It was a happier.
But there's way more conspiracy theories now, and then now like social media and everything's given those people voices, and now there's more nutcases that latch onto it and join up in the crusade of whatever. I'm not. This is not a political thing. This is just a reality of social media. It doesn't matter what side you fall on. Like for instance, bringing it back to sports, you'd have people arguing, "Oh, this is fixed. Oh, the refs are all in on it, and this is all whatever." And of course, there's been shit that's happened in the past that people that were betting on the games and whatever. But for the most part, I mean, you could argue this with anything and whatever, but I don't see it. I don't buy into all that. I just take it as entertainment value. And for entertainment value, I'm fine. I never latched onto a sport like I have basketball because of Christian. Like I said, like I latched onto it because of him, and now I watch it more than him because he gets a little upset because he's too invested in a team or whatever that he almost doesn't want to watch. You just tell me the outcome. Just let me know. But his Lakers are his favorite team now. And so once they're out, he doesn't care so much, but he watched the end part of the game last night because he wants the Celtics to win and play the Nuggets at the end. So that's really it. The passion came from him, and now I've become a fanatic.
Nice.
Back in the day, I don't think I could latch on to sports because it was a time commitment, and my time was dedicated to movies, whether it just be regular movies or then horror films. As I got older, that's what consumed all of my time pretty much. I didn't want to put 2 hours aside or 2.5 hours aside for watching sports on TV. Not interested. If I was going to go see a game, I'd go see it live, and that was it. And that was more infrequent, but it happened. Now I did it last year. I watched all the playoffs, even though the Raptors weren't in it. And then we got the NBA app. And when they're not on local, I'll watch games of just all the different teams. I just love the sport now. So I'm way more invested in it. And now I can't, like, I mean, it's not one of my favorite teams or anything like that, but now I kind of want the Celtics to take it all because I just like their fight back and whatever. Just one of the things. But 6 years ago, I guess it would have been, I wasn't talking about basketball, as you brought up on the show one time. Christian got into it because of school and whatever. Yeah. It was that year the Raptors started gaining some traction, and then they ended up winning. And then it's been like go ever since. That was 2019, 2018-19 year officially.
Right on. No, that's cool. I mean, I can't shit on something that people are. You're having fun with it. That's awesome. That's great. You know,
but I could get it if you're an old school fan and compared it, but I think it's the nostalgia effect. Like things just evolved, and you're either with it or you're not. Your mindset's not there anymore. But I don't actually think it's changed drastically, other than some,
maybe
some of the
not
rules
basketball. I just think the landscape of just people in general, it has changed, and including athletes and things. It's more self-centering now. It's less about the team, more about the individual. Again, I'm really going by football talk here, more so than anything. And football is disheartening to me now in a way. And I know you're going to laugh, but whatever, like the wrestling thing, how different it is, the difference of what it was and what
I don't laugh because
it's disheartening.
I never really followed. I mean, I knew of it, of course.
Right, but I know what you think about it.
But I'm not. Yeah, I was never a big wrestling fan ever.
Right.
But I was obviously well aware of it, and that's fine. I mean, you see the differences. And that's why I'm like, don't even, like, when I see your posts. I mentioned this the other show. Like, don't post, Dave, because these people don't want to listen. They just want to.
I know.
They just want to argue back or whatever it may be. So fuck them.
But the thing is, it's
no discussion. It's just an argument.
it's coming from a good place. I mean, it looks like it's antagonistic when I'm saying how bad things are now with it, but it's coming from a place of love. It's like, it's almost like people that follow politics, why they feel the way they do. They think in their mind that they are doing the right thing at all times. Like, I'm saying this because I believe this is the right thing. What I believe in is right. What you're saying, that doesn't make any sense to me. So it's like when I talk about it, it's like I'm sharing it because my level of disappointment is so great, and I know that I'm not the only one, that there's more of me than there are of people that stuck with it. More people have stopped watching it that have got into it, and it's a shrinking thing. And as a result, it's almost like you feel vindicated when you're not the only one, and when everybody involved, you know what I mean? It's just like, look at what's happened to our, into something that I once loved. It's going to be it's shrinking. It's turning into this, and I knew it was going to be this way because the people have the same problem I do. And anyway, so that's what it is. It's just like, it's more of like a funeral. It's just like, man, this sucks. But then there's the people that are passionate that are still into it, and they think that I'm trying to mess
like
with
horror,
them.
man.
I'm not mad at them. I wish that they see. There's two ways of thought. You're like, you want to be happy for somebody that's enjoying something. Why would you not? Salute. You enjoy it, I'm happy for you. And that is the way I feel about that. But at the same time, I also think that they fool themselves. Like the people that are my age that are still into it, they've convinced themselves that what's going on now is the same, or there's other things. And it's like, because they're so into it, they don't want to let it go. You understand? They've had it for so long. They're part of a cult.
I get it. I get it. But what if you use the argument for horror, and you become like the guy that's saying, "Oh, horror nowadays sucks, and it was always better in the 70s and 80s," and we know they're out there, and it doesn't mean you can't have a preference, but to just dismiss modern horror altogether, I'm going to that extreme. That's the extreme that these folks seem to take, and that could be like, we don't agree with that. We say, no, the last decade has been phenomenal. Or I actually think, like, I could even say the 2000s plus the 2010s have been fantastic, with the 2010s being even better. But there was it's a stepping stone, and it comes off of that decade that we deem not quite. Well, we don't deem it as successful as the 70s, 80s, or whatever. So there's that one bland decade, and maybe we're going to head into that bland decade now. It seems we're still we're still good. We're still good. We're 3 years
still good, but
we'll
this
see what happens, and then maybe 2021 or 2021.
Hold on now.
2031 will then take us to the next level again. Maybe we do need that circular motion. But what has evolved since then, since the 90s? We've had social media, we've had Kickstarter campaigns, we've got everybody and their uncle being able to make movies. Yeah, that was happening, but you still needed some sort of money and budget back in the day to make that a reality, for the most part. Even there's only so many blood cults and whatever that were out there that were shot on video, and they took the chance and whatever. And we know that the video shelves were filled with these videos, but it's not to the extent now where you could turn on Tubi, and it could be someone that was down the street that you didn't even know filmed the movie, and it's on Tubi for you to watch.
Yeah, man. Right.
So it's a totally different age now. And again,
sure,
for the most part, they're hunking steams of shit. I can't even talk. They're shitty. They're shit films. Hunking piles of steamy shit is, I think, what I was going to try to say, and it still didn't even make sense. But for the most part, that's what we're getting there. But there's always, and every now and then, like a diamond in the rough, or a found footage film that you score like higher, said this is going to be on the list, or whatever it may be. So, and that's like but I'm just saying, if you take the post and substitute wrestling for horror, I think that's what some of these people are. And then they're fighting back, saying, well, no, the modern stuff is still good. You're just not a fan of that particular stuff.
Well, there's something to be said there, but it's also like, I hear what you're saying, but I will say, like, right now, like what's going on in 2023 is not great. But I mean, I can separate myself and say, yeah, it's all still out there. I think those people that are against modern horror, are they giving it chances, or are they just looking at Annabelle when it comes to a theater, because they always seem to reference, like, here's what they reference: mainstream horror or art house horror that's not their cup of tea, which
Yeah,
I
true.
could understand. But I always tell them, it's like they're not watching. Like, look at our top 100 list that we did. Okay, I think if people watched all those movies, I think that they would come away with a different opinion on modern horror. I just don't think that these people, they're almost like the casual horror fan. Just like you have the casual wrestling fan. Here's the thing: the casual wrestling fan doesn't really exist anymore. That's what they need. They need them. But the only people that are left are the diehards, right? They can't attract casual fans because there's nothing speaking. There's no stars anymore. It's just different. Just like horror now, it's really great for us. But the difference is this: people that have been involved in wrestling, look at it this way. Let's pretend that Barbara Crampton and Tony Todd and Jeffrey Combs, like all these people, Joe Bob, let's say all these people that have been watching horror or involved for 30 plus years, right? That they made their life with it. They were always in it in that heyday, are speaking out against modern horror now, saying this is what's wrong with it. This is why they're not making money. This is the difference. That's not happening. But in wrestling, it happens all the time. All the people that were involved in it, and it's been growing over the 2010s more and more each year, where they're saying, well, they don't need to do this. This is what's going on. So not only are the observers saying this, but the people that are on the inside that are seeing it are also critiquing it just as much. And I think that's what it speaks to. I think that's the difference, that it's that radical of a difference. I mean, you could see a shift in film. Yeah, but we still have slashers. We still have, what's the difference now? There's more found footage and there's more supernatural stuff. And there's more art house horror. And people don't like to believe in that. And I know Jamie's one of them, where she says that elevated horror, not that we like to use that term. Actually, I don't give a fuck. But she said it's always existed, that horror's always been smart. See, I can only say that halfway. Yes, there have always been these intelligent horror movies that there's more than meets the eye. There's something beneath the surface, and
Well,
they're
I guess
speaking
we're
on
going to be
things.
talking about two tonight, to interrupt you, but yeah.
But they weren't on, I don't want to say the forefront. There's a lot more of it now. Yes, they've always been there. And you can cite examples in the 70s and the 80s and whatever. You can talk about them and say, yeah, they've been there. But now there's an overwhelming amount. And listen, I love them. I'm not complaining about it. So, but there's so much out there now. That's the difference. And that's why I think people get turned off. That's what I think it is. There's an anytime you don't like something and then you see an overabundance of it, then you tend to get a little more disturbed about it, angry about it. And I think that's why people retaliate and say, oh yeah, fuck that art house horror, elevated horror is garbage, this and that. And yes, there has always been examples of elevated horror, but I'll say it again, now there's a lot more of it. That's what I think it is. Just like you could say there's always been found footage in a manner of speaking. There's a little here, a little there. But it got really big for a while. And now it's huge. And I'm realizing how huge it is because I'm talking to these people in these found footage groups, and I've seen what's going on with Tubi and even from like the 2000s and up, how much there is. And there's a lot. Granted, a lot of it's not that great, but it's there. It's prevalent. So I can understand why some people don't like found footage. I get that. So I don't know. It's just, do you agree? Like what I'm saying, does that make sense to you about elevated horror and found footage?
Yeah.
Or do you think I'm off?
No, I don't think you're off. I don't think you're off at all. It did exist, but I don't think it was at the forefront. It would be a film here and there. And, certain directors would be crowned. Like, I think Cronenberg would be a good example of that. Carpenter to a degree, but I think in the case of what we're arguing, I would still lean that Carpenter was more entertainment value overall, and Cronenberg would definitely be going for the deep meaning themes. I'm not saying that they don't exist in Carpenter. I don't know, it's skewed here for saying that, but I think Cronenberg would definitely have that title back in the day. And then, of course, there's other ones that came from typically non-horror directors that ended up making one or maybe two horror films back, and those ones would stand out. Kubrick being, one of them. Although his movies often had dark side to them, The Shining is probably his true horror film, even though I think you said he argued that it wasn't even a horror movie. Or was that not one of the ones?
I can't.
No, sorry, I might have been putting words in your mouth, because we had this discussion of some directors saying that my movie is not even a horror film.
Well,
but I think that was what it was. It was The Exorcist, correct? So, but yeah, I think there's more of it now because it existed in the past, and these directors have a fondness of it, and it stemmed from that background. So it's great. I think we get a little bit of everything now, or a lot of everything now, I guess is how you want to word it, because we just have more content, which is great. But what also is interesting that this year is where it's at, because I know it's almost June, but I'm just saying, I feel like there's less movies that I've been high on than usual by this point.
For sure. Granted, I've only seen like 25, but still.
Yeah. Well, I don't see enough that are. But that's it. I haven't seen any of the ones that people are like raving about, and the ones that some people were raving about, but Skinamarink and whatever like that. I'm like, oof.
Well, no,
that ain't going to be on my list.
I think there's more dislike for Skinamarink than there is love for it, by far.
Yeah, thank God.
It just means.
But again, I say thank God, but at the big picture, I don't care if you liked it. You liked it. Who the fuck am I to say? But I'm just saying, not for me.
Fair enough. No, I feel you. The thing is, do you feel like, okay, as good as horror is now, there are still things that lack. I still cannot, in my opinion, and I've said, and we've talked about it, that the 2010s were a better era ultimately for slashers than the 90s, even when we broke it down. You know what I mean? And most of the listeners agreed. I still don't think we are at that place where we once were with slashers. That's a critique of modern times. They can't make them like they used to. Well, and I don't know why. And when they do try to make them like they used to, they're the worst ones. They're the originals, like Slumber Party Massacre or Terror Train or whatever the hell they're doing.
Slumber Party Massacre wasn't make it like it used to. Slumber Party Massacre was a modern take. But I know what you're saying. Like because the problem was they're empty. So all these movies that we praise, a lot of it comes from nostalgia, and let's not forget the fact they were scary back in the day. They may have that we've seen them so many times, so maybe we don't find them scary, or the modern audience might not see Friday the 13th as scary or the first Halloween as scary, but we did, and we've grown up with it, and we appreciate it, and we know it. And nowadays they're not scary anymore. They're just maybe about the kills, and sometimes the kills are not even stand out or good, and they're just mindless. And they were mindless, but again, scary. And now they're just mindless. And you kind of have to, that's why I think you can't just make them like they used to, because you're going to get those to-be originals that are just garbage. But I feel like there's a good enough balance back in the day that the acting was good. You weren't winning any Academy Awards, but it was passable enough for the most part. We could argue that certain movies, of course, had their fair share of horrible acting as well, but that could have been a charm depending on the movie itself. But usually some standout kills, standout effects, scary music, actual feel, like a mood or atmosphere to it, and like and like I said, scary, if I didn't already say that 100 times over.
But they're not doing it. Like it's such a simple formula, and it doesn't seem like for example, let's talk about Halloween. Let's talk about the new trilogy. And they are making it as modern filmmakers. It's a modern take on something that should have been so simple. And I, for the most part, enjoyed the new trilogy. But I still think, well, in the first one, they had to have comedy. And in the second one, there was always something in all these movies. And then there's a lot of hate for Halloween Ends, making it what it was, which I happen to enjoy the take as a movie, not maybe as a slasher, but just as a movie. So I was like happy for it. But it's like, it's such a simple formula to make. You know what would have been a great slasher? And I'm not knocking the movie because I enjoy it. Hush. Hush was a great movie, but let's just say
Hush.
One
of my favorite from him.
Let's just say
Sleeper, my favorite.
Yeah. You know, my daughter asked to watch yesterday out of nowhere. She said, what was that movie? The butterflies and this and the kid died.
Oh,
I really
Before Awake? Yeah.
So we're watching it today or tomorrow. We're
Nice.
gonna watch it because they're fucking, for some reason, out of nowhere, they both, because I showed that. I'll get to that later when I say what we watched. But what I'm saying is this. Imagine if Hush, and I get that it was great and that it was a one man and one woman show for the most, and I dug it. I thought it was awesome.
2 or 3 more kills.
However, well, not even that. Let's just say they introduced her at the beginning, and then some kids come into town, okay, or whatever, because it's the way they are. They're secluded. Let's just for the sake of argument, let's have it that the last like half hour is basically what this entire movie ended up being. Like 90 minutes that we get of it is great, but let's say they condensed that into just 30 minutes and still made it great. And then in the meantime, that guy was a slasher in a regular way with a mask on, never removed his mask like he did with her, and killed kids that were at a house, almost like Friday Final Chapter or New Blood. They're just at this place for the weekend. So it's like a regular slasher. This person comes out of nowhere, does his thing, bumps them off in gory ways, and they found a way to make Hush scary. They shot it right, the music. They had some scary
scenes. A talented director.
I know, right.
Everybody's going to be probably surprised that I say it, but I'm not saying he's not talented. I've been like lukewarm on some of his stuff, but I've been high on other parts. It's not like I don't like the guy. He is probably one of the best out there right now. That's consistently sticking to horror and wants to please horror fans. So how can you shit on someone like that? That's what we need more of those.
I was thinking last night that to me, he's like a modern day Cronenberg. Like for me, Cronenberg, and hear me out. All what I'm saying is this, for me personally, Cronenberg is like my number 3 or 4 because he's consistent. Because I've never seen a Cronenberg movie. I have 1 10 out of 10. And the rest are not, but they're all good. Good to great, maybe. But what I'm saying is, I haven't really seen a turd, although I have to go back. I can't remember which one I watched. It was one of the early ones. It was either Shivers or Rabid, and I was kind of bored by it. But I would still give it like a 6.5. It was still okay. Now, the lowest movie I give Flanagan is also a 6.5, and that was that Ouija. That's the one that he did, which wasn't as good as the others. Whatever. Yeah, but I enjoyed it. It was fine. But to me, that's the comparison to me, that Flanagan now is kind of like what Cronenberg's body of work was for me personally, that he was consistent. Like The Fly is amazing. And in my opinion, Dr. Sleep is, I guess, almost like The Fly for me. It's his great movie. So it's funny that you bring that up, because that's kind of like my comparison is like Cronenberg for me and Flanagan. They're consistent,
Yeah, that's why I would have probably compared him to a Craven, but then I've also, like I said, when I was a kid, Craven was one of my favorites. But as I grew older, I just started not like, and I don't want to take anything away. There's some great movies he's done, but I've just been down on a lot more of them. Like when people defend, I will watch Deadly Friend, but for all the wrong reasons. I'll watch that because I'm like, I got to watch this shit fest again, because it's totally entertaining. I won't take away from the fact that it's entertainment, but for the wrong reasons, in my opinion. Kind of like Shocker. I'll watch Shocker for entertainment purposes, but like when he's doing the voodoo stuff or whatever in the cell and everything and biting the lip off the guy, I can't help it. I'm just laughing. It's funny. There's nothing scary about it. But back in the day, I thought Wes Craven was super cool, and as I got older, I just kind of fell a little out of love with his work, but still love, of course, those heavy hitters that he's done, and he's done enough.
Yeah.
Like, again, it's not like he hasn't contributed to the fucking genre. His misses are fucking misses, but his hits, you can't deny, are fantastic. So, and Flanagan's not like he had that many misses. Like maybe Ouija 2 is the big miss. Oculus, you remember, I know people love Oculus. I liked it. And Dr. Sleep, I mean, again, I had such high hopes for it in the theater that my theatrical experience was a little ho-hum. But then when I rewatch it, I'm like, yeah, I was wrong. It's fantastic. And I can admit when I'm wrong. And that was one of the times that I was like, yeah, that was great. But Hush, first watch, I was like, this is amazing. And I remember rewatching it right away with the family because I thought it was great. And you're right. We when we reviewed that movie, which is so fucking long ago, because that was 2016. It was one of the early episodes. I remember my couple of critiques were that I wish you didn't take off the mask maybe maybe a little later, and that there were maybe 2 or 3 more kills, and that would have elevated it more. But I don't think that was what his plan was with the movie. It's something we wanted from the movie, but it's still great as is. But that you're right, that could have been elevated. You know which one is more like an 80s slasher movie that more people shit on, but is very rewatchable? Is Hell Night or Hellfest. That's
I enjoy
an 80s slasher movie. That's an 80. That's the 80s slasher movie. Without nudity. And again, you can argue that because nudity now in movies is going to be looked upon very differently. Before it was a different time, very innocent. You can say what you want to say about it because maybe it is a little creepy. That sometimes we're talking about high school girls and they're getting naked and whatever in those movies, and you never really thought twice about it back in the day. Now everybody like, holy shit, what are these filmmakers trying to do and whatever.
Okay, so wait,
but you could if that had that aspect to it, and maybe one other, like the kills were fine. Like I'm gonna say not all 80s movies had great kills. Some of them were just knife stabs and that was it, and rather goreless. At least Hellfest took it to having most of them with gore or a couple of standouts, like you're like, oh, and whatever. So that would be the standout for me. And I love the way it ended as well.
I got to watch it again. I think we did watch it again not too long ago, but I know what it is. It's fine. It's good. I just don't get that. Maybe because it's not scary at all, or I don't know. I'm not saying I don't like it. I do like it. Maybe I got to watch it again. I just don't get the.
I think it's the closest to an 80s slasher, except for the ones that are aiming to be that 80s slasher that are taking it the Strangers Thing route, where everything's got to be like there was a time and place where it was all about that, and now I'm kind of falling out of that. Does it have to take place in the 80s? Does everybody have to look like they're from the 80s? And they're not getting it right. If they're doing it, it feels like it's overkill, and they're compensating for lack of something else, and it's almost a facade of 80s. It doesn't feel true to the 80s.
It's hard to do it. I know.
Articulating that, I don't know, but like Summer of 84 is a good example of it. I still think that tried too hard. Stranger Things tries too hard to be there. Whether you like the show or not, I still feel like tries too hard to capture that time frame.
Not so much now.
It was good that way, I think.
Yeah, it was. Yep. Yeah, man. Shoot. I just don't get it. I don't get why it should be so easy. You don't have to even set it in the 80s. It just seems like so that's something that's lacking.
Guns N' Roses said it in the 80s.
Said what?
It's so easy.
Yes, they did. When everybody's trying
to please me. I'm sorry, everybody.
Do it. No, do it because my memory is lapsing. So I mean, I'm just trying to.
Well, I see your sister in her Sunday dress.
Awesome. Oh man, that's great. But you don't.
Random.
I just can't get the slashers now. It just doesn't. It should be so easy. I keep saying it. And we don't get it. So that's my critique on modern horrors, that we just can't seem to get. Everything has to be a certain way. And it's unfortunate.
There's some sort of innocence, some sort of like, whether it was just bankrolled for profit or we just want to make some bucks, something about it was just a different time. And the simplicity of it just took a special type of mentality. Because again, I get to make this personal. We'll talk about the movie that we're trying to make and whatever, the first script that we were talking about last week and everything. I was like, why is it so difficult?
Well, how do they talk?
Scenario and how they talk and whatever. And I'm like,
dialogue.
But I can't, there had to be another element, or I'm like, or it's going to mean nothing. And I felt like I needed another element. I'm not saying that this other element, you've read it, I still feel like it fits within the guise of something that could have happened back in the day. Like, with like a happy birthday to me type thing or whatever. But there needed to be another element. And somehow I guess the innocence, as I keep referring back to, is just what makes some of those ones work.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think people, they overthink everything, including yourself. You don't need the extra element.
Why has there not been another Friday the 13th other than the lawsuit? Before the lawsuit hit,
right?
Why didn't we have like 3 other ones after 2009? I mean, the box office,
because studios, I don't know, studios weren't confident, and they didn't think that. In studios, they were probably still thinking that it's got to be like Scream, even at that point, because that was the less successful brand that freaking did something. And they're still, to this day, you're getting those meta movies. You know what I mean? People still, you could tell someone whose favorite horror movie is Scream. I don't mean this as a diss. I'm just saying you could tell a director who came up in that time and that happens to be that age now, and their first love was Scream. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to someone whose first love was Halloween. That's all I'm saying. It's just, you could tell by the director. You could probably watch the movie and say, okay, this is the year, this is around the time they were born. This is what had an impression on them. It's nobody's fault. It's 2 different eras, but you could tell. And now it's all of that. So I think there's just no confidence at that time in anything to do. But it's like, oh man, I don't think there has to be that extra thing. And that's what I think. I think everybody's so caught up. The problem is this. Teens are too cynical now in the stuff. No, it's true. Like, their discussions are too, it's not like in the 80s and stuff. It was just like, yeah, let's get beer. Let's watch the football game. Let's play some games. Let's get laid. Just regular shit. Yeah. Now everything, and I'm not saying everything has to have a statement, isn't like political. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, like, teens, just the way they talk, and now like on movies, every time you see them, they're just too cynical. They're just too smart for their own good, maybe. And the thing is, the viewers don't want to see characters like that. They want to see, regular type people like we had in the 80s. And for some reason, they don't write them that way anymore.
Or we at least do. And yeah, you're right, though. But the ones that get credit are usually nothing like what they used to be.
Right.
Like they're yeah. And again, diversity's kicked in, which, I mean, I feel like it's always been there, but I understand, like, if it's a mainstream movie now, it's like they have to follow like almost like a specific recipe for making a movie now in this day and age.
Sadly, it shouldn't be forced upon. It's just, all inclusion is wonderful, but people shouldn't feel the need to have to. You know what I'm saying? They're just saying, now it's a different world. Do it on, right on. It's all good. Let it happen. Like, I was just watching the documentary about clothing, actually. Fresh Dressed, it's called, and it was about hip-hop clothing from the 70s and 80s and what it became and everything else, and how fashion now is different. And they were talking about this, and they're saying, back then, people were closeted so much and everything else, and now more people come out, and it's reflective in the clothes that they wear, that people are more willing to take risks with some of the stuff that they're wearing, and there's more individuality in the way, like, people are just dressing any way they want to now, and it's kind of cool. And they say part of the reason for that is because people, I think a lot of people with it not being shunned upon so much for being homosexual, that's when people started wearing different clothes, and they were talking about this on this documentary. And this is cool. And these are all kinds of hip hop people and people that are on both sides. We're talking about rappers. We're talking about people that are involved in the clothing lines and stuff. And people in the press, good stuff. But it's just a different world now, and as well it should be. But at the same time, and see, you can't say anything. That's the problem. I want to say, for me talking to you, not on a show, I want to say this, and I don't want people to get the wrong idea, but some will. But I want to say, it shouldn't be shoved down your throats. See, now I sound like a jerk off.
No, but I know what you're saying, and here I think I could back up that argument and make it make more sense. That doesn't make any sense, and maybe I won't.
No, it's okay.
More sense.
Make it more acceptable.
Well, because
I think to it.
I've said this. If I'm writing a character, and we just decide to, like, it might be more offensive because it's not part of my culture. It's not part of my day to day. And so where I'm going with it is, if Spike Lee and Jordan Peele say, well, I'm making movies about Black people,
right on,
power to them, because that's their culture. That's what they've grown up with, and they've been all inclusive, but that's what they've grown up with. And I've loved those movies, and I've grown up with them too. And I never once thought, hey, there's not enough white people in this movie. I never cared.
Right.
I never even thought of it like that. But I would say it's more offensive if we try to force it. I would say, like, oh, this is just trying to fill a quota. If I was from so I know where you're coming from, and maybe I don't think I've got the wrong mentality, because there's no hate coming from this.
No,
I think it's actually more aligned with how people should be, of all accepting, and just saying, like, it shouldn't be forced. It should be natural. And if you're going to write that, then you better consult with people to make sure you get the proper character traits and everything down, because then otherwise it's just a caricature. And to me, it's insulting if it's supposed to be a different culture, race, whatever it may be, and you don't have it. That's what we got in the 80s. Let's be honest. That was what we got in the 80s. If you want to see offensive, Fisher Stevens, I think, single-handedly wins for playing most of the most offensive characters known to man, between, like, My Science Project, Short Circuit, and whatever. I mean, no one thinks about it, but it's funny. Like, it's
yeah. No, I'm with you. But I don't think people should feel like they have to, because now all of a sudden, now it's almost like you have to go. Again, it's probably not difficult to write the dialogue. You know what I'm saying? All you got to do is substitute. If you're talking about, I don't know. I don't even know how to get into it. Like, if you're just talking about homosexual couples, all you got to do, it doesn't make a difference. A gay person is going to talk to their lover the same way a straight person is, to a degree, and that shouldn't make a difference. It isn't like, oh, I don't know how to write a gay man. No, it doesn't give a gay man.
No.
It has nothing to do with how they talk. Some gay men talk like everybody else. Some gay men are more flamboyant and talk about different things. It is what it is. What do I care? I don't give a shit.
Well, I even asked my wife.
A challenge,
I even asked my wife when I was writing the dialogue for the female characters in the movie, if this rang true, or if anything was a little too forced or whatever.
Right.
And she said no, it all was fine for her for the most part. There's nothing that she didn't agree with or whatever. But I thought it was important to get that standpoint, because maybe I'm just writing it from one standpoint and going through. But remember the 90s where diversity was just having a goth chick in the movie?
Right. For sure.
And by goth, I mean they wore black and wore a lot of mascara.
Right. Basically, yeah. Painted their fingernails black and wore some, different jewelry. But it's like, when I was thinking about writing things, I tell Francesca, I'm like, listen, this is what I need to do. This is my idea. When it comes to the dialogue of the teens, I want you to sit down with me and help me write that dialogue. It makes sense. You're going to go to somebody that age that has the ability to write. And she, poor girl, has a great ability to write. I can't believe she wrote something like 4 or 5 years ago, and it was so good. And I'm not just saying this because it's my daughter. I read this and I was like, she put this up on this thing and everybody was like sharing. I forgot what the hell it was. And I might have been in Discord or this or that. She got like legit like fans of her writing for these couple of things that she wrote. And it was like fan fiction that she made up, right, for something. And there was something else going on. But she got all this love from all these people. It was crazy. And then because she was doing things she shouldn't have been doing at the time, she got in trouble, and Irene took away all these things she had, and she wiped out that account that she had, because she was also talking to what we believe might have ended up being grown men. Okay.
Oh shit.
Either way,
okay.
you don't know. Bottom line is you
Yeah.
don't know. And she was talking to them about things that I was uncomfortable with, and that we were, and she kept going back to it. It was a difficult time for her.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so that got wiped out. And I feel so bad because she got so discouraged because that got wiped out, and because she had built all these followers in a short time, that she never went back to writing. And she's better at drawing, and she is very good at art and drawing. So she's always concentrated on her schoolwork, and then she does that and other stuff, and she pushed writing to the side. And I'm so disheartened by this, because as someone who thinks that they can write good and everything out, write well, I should say, and characters.
I was going to do it. I was like, that's a dick move.
It'd be funny though, especially when I'm talking about how I can articulate myself so well, and I can't.
Well,
right?
I know I can't, so that's fine.
And I'm like, wow, whatever gift I have, or believe that I have for writing, this one has it too, and maybe more so, and at a younger age. And I'm like, wow, this is something I want you to pursue. And she dropped it. And it freaking, she doesn't understand how that disappointed me. And I don't want her to feel that, but I was just excited for her, because I'm like, wow, you're really good at this. And now you don't even do it anymore. And it kind of sucks but it does. So I was like, man, she can write. So anyway, I wanted her to write the dialogue with me. I thought maybe if I did that, maybe she'd,
jump back in.
Yeah. At least I got the music thing going now. Like I've convinced her to listen to an album front to back, because she's telling me, she goes, she's excited about it. Not as excited as me, but I keep giving her these recommendations and play this different music for her. And she's like, you have such good taste in music, she says. She goes, it's so much better than modern stuff and this and auto-tune and this. She's talking about modern music, how she doesn't really like it anymore. And she goes, the stuff that you like, she goes, you have really good taste in music. I want to listen to more of it. I had to listen to Suicidal Tendencies, she says. I'm like, awesome. That's great. So I'm like, I'm trying to get her into albums now. So yesterday I said, listen to this album. It's only 28 minutes long, and it's great, start to finish. I want you to understand albums. I want you to try these. And if you like this, we'll try another one. So I said, listen to Slayer, Rain and Blood. I want to know what her takeaway is going to be, because she does love the hard stuff. She really loves the thrash guitar, like DRI when they went thrash, and like Suicidal Tendencies and SOD. She loves that, the crunchy guitar. She's really into it. I'm like, so it's exciting for me. So I want her to listen to Rain and Blood, and then tell me what she thinks. And just
it's don't get me wrong, you could easily do that with modern music and Apple Music and everything else, because you could play it in full. And I know you are. You've said your piece on records and everything coming back in hipsters, but that is guaranteed. You've got a player, you're sitting in your room, you drop the needle down and you listen to the album from beginning to end.
Good point.
And there's something about that I remember doing as a kid, even if it was Sesame Street Fever or Air Supply or
Right on.
Simon and Garfunkel or any of the albums that my parents, I had, my parents didn't have Sesame Street Fever. I did. Well, but those were, I had a bunch of records, but my parents' records were, I always go in and I'd pull one out and I'd say, I want to listen to it. Had no clue who the band was at the time. I just wanted to listen to it.
Buddy, me too. I grew up on my mom's records, 45s and long plays. And like, I came up on stuff like that, like the freaking, all that stuff for movies, songs from like the 50s and the 60s and shit in these old 45s. And
or you remember, did they ever have, like, my parents would get like regular records, like we'd have the Beatles and whatever here and there, but not all of them, like more of the popular ones, not necessarily like the ones that I would listen to now, more so than the other, like the I Want to Hold Your Hand albums is what they would have. Yeah. Sure. And did you ever have like Dr. Hook? It was like a compilation. They would do I thought that's what it was. It would be a compilation of all like 50s or 60s rock or songs like that. I used to love those ones too.
Well, Dr. Hook sang that one song, the cover of the Rolling Stone?
I got to make sure I'm thinking.
Of the
Look it up now because I remember it was Dr. Hook.
Demento?
It was Dr. Hook and the Medical. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought because that Dr. Hook is his own band, so maybe I'm mixing it up with something else.
Dr. Demento?
No.
Okay.
But it was a compilation. So we also have Dr. Hook as well, but there was a compilation record that they had, and because it would have like Green Door, and like it would have like I don't know. I'm gonna have to research it and get back.
Green
But
Tambourine?
for whatever reason, I thought that was Dr. Hook, but no, it seems like Dr. Hook gets its own band and entity.
Yeah. How about Green Tambourine? Remember that song? My Green Tambourine. Like that was the stuff I would have on like my mother would have the 45s. I would have that and like freaking Judy in Disguise. Well, that's what you like, are.
It's funny enough, it would have, hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play that song for me.
The Birds version?
Yeah, it would have that, and there'd be like, it would be a compilation so that you'd want to go buy the albums of the.
I had those.
Yeah. I
used to have those children's records with different children's songs on them and all that other stuff. Disney, they were made by Disney.
Well. I used to fucking have those too.
I never bought into that other stuff though, like the Kids Bop and like other people singing rock songs, but it was kids. Never cared for it.
Remember? Did you watch the show Kids Incorporated?
I remember that show, and I did watch it a little bit. Kids Incorporated.
KIDS. Kids Incorporated.
Yeah, I
did want to have fun. Holy shit, that's like a memory that only because we're talking about it was like recessed in the back of the mind. It all came back to me right there. It's all coming back to me.
See, you got to keep that in the head, man. It keeps you young. But yeah, Kids Incorporated. I did watch it a few times, sure. But I never bought those records. Like I think Kids Bop came out years later. Maybe we were too old for that at the time.
Kids Bop was like the stuff that they give you with a Happy Meal, I think at McDonald's here. And it was like trying to reestablish mini pops. That's how I had it. We had like 3 Kids Bop things. It was because they'd sell the CDs that would be the gift in your Happy Meal. Wow. It would either be at McDonald's or it was at Wendy's for their kids' meals.
Like what? Like a CD? A CD?
No. This is going to the CD. Oh, I said CD, and Siri popped up saying, what do you want?
CD Siri, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Kids Bop was Kids Bop, I thought was in the 2000s. I didn't think it went back.
Maybe there was something before Kids Bop where it was basically
the mini pops,
kids singing.
The mini pops was the ones from the 80s and 90s, and they had that was a long run.
Interesting. Yeah, I can't. Bottom line is, I never got into it anyway. I didn't care. I want to hear the people singing. I want to hear kids singing a song. You know, I was like, what do I care about this? Even when I was a kid.
Even as a kid, I liked it. I'm like,
did you? Kids, I just wanted to hear the real.
This is what made me want to be a singer. Then I'd hear myself on tape and be like, whoa, I'll never, ever be a singer. But at least I knew that.
But I can imitate a singer and have it sound good. That's if I use someone else's voice, I could sing a song and it sounds good, but I can't sing in my own voice. Weird, huh?
That is weird.
Like I could do an Eddie Vedder, you know? I could sing. You could listen to it. Oh yeah, that sounds good. You can hold a tune.
Well, there's been so many bands that like, why didn't you just sing that way then?
Well, because
like Creed-esque, where you,
I know,
where
right?
You just had,
can you take me higher? You know,
yeah. See, like there you go.
But they have me
coming
singing
in his pants right now.
You know, can you take me higher? See, it doesn't sound good when I'm singing it. Right?
Yeah, you're right. I don't mean that in a bad way. Yeah, it was like you did it greatly. Let's do another example.
I don't know. Age of empty canvas. Well, that's not the best.
Yeah.
But
do Elvis. You probably could do a good Elvis too.
Huh? Can I do a good Elvis? Let's see here. Let me think about an Elvis lyrics. Tell me a song that would do. Well,
Blue Suede Shoes.
That's tough to do. How are the lyrics for Blue Suede Shoes?
I fucking remember. I don't know why it was the first song to pop in my head either.
Well, you can do anything to lay off my blue suede shoes. You know, something like that. Let me tell you.
Sounded good.
Blue suede shoes, baby. Blue suede shoes. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I like
it. See, it ain't bad. I can do it if it's somebody else. I can imitate certain people, you know. Can I do an Axl Rose? That I don't know. You know what I'm saying? That's a whole other thing.
No, I can't do it either.
No, I could do what you were doing before. I see your sister in a Sunday dress. Actually, you know what that sounded like? Sounded like freaking Scott Weiland. I am. You know,
you know, yeah, that's true.
You know,
and that's music talk for this episode. Yeah. I think Marco's come 3 times during this little segment. He hasn't heard you sing in a while.
Hey, no, that's true. I haven't sung in a while. You're right. Well, you asked me to, so I did it. You know, we'll do some more. I'll try to sing a song every show, or I'll tell a crazy girl story every show.
Well, can I, and Marco, this is a clip. Well, this is a question for you. Answer it like you did the last one. Why is Canada playing Germany for the gold medal in hockey in Finland? Like, which is cool, but why wouldn't it be in Germany? I don't understand why Canada's playing Germany for the gold medal, but in Finland.
Huh.
Why is that, Marco? Please answer that question for me by next episode.
Finland paid for it. That's why. Finland paid for it. No matter where it's going to be, no matter what 2 teams are involved, what 2 countries, we're going to have it here. They paid for that time. It's like the Super Bowl. It's like the Super Bowl is going to be here. And it's only going to be so long before the Super Bowl's played in the UK. You heard it here.
What about the Super Bowl of self-abuse?
That's Axl. Speaking of Axl, you know, from one Axl to the other.
Axl to the other. It always comes back to Friday. It always circles back. One way or the other. 6 degrees of Friday the 13th.
Yep. That's one dog to another. How about that? You know what movie that's from? Yeah, that's one dog to another. Yeah. It's a movie that's come up before on this show, and it's something it has been quoted before on the show, but it's probably not what you think. Yep.
No, I can't.
I'll even give you a hint. Don't do that. We haven't been asked yet. That was a line that was said, and then the answer was, and I always thought it was funny because she said, "We haven't been asked yet." Instead of we haven't been asked, she says, "Don't do that.
Know.
We haven't been asked yet." And then the guy says, "That's one dog to another." Well, the answer is The Wizard of Oz.
Oh.
When Toto is eating
a horse
Professor
of a different
Marvel's
color.
hot dog.
Yeah.
Right. That's a horse of a different color.
My buttons. It's a horse of a different color.
Amazing.
Outstanding. Oh, speaking of which, as a follow-up to last episode, we answered all those questions, and Kuno did reach out to me and said he was totally cool. He was totally Kuno. He was totally cool to do any editing we wanted on the next one. Well, not any. Maybe I'm taking liberties here, but help with editing or any help we wanted with the thing. He even sent me a reel. He's like, "Oh, it's not that great, but here's my reel." It was really good. I don't know what he undersold himself. I thought it was a great reel. So I'm like, yeah, he's got it. Because we're gonna do this laptop thing. There's certain ways to do it. There's just film it in real time and you get everything in, but you know it's not going to work in real time. It'd be even if you rehearsed it 500 times over, something's not going to work. That you're going to have to film it kind of separately and figure it out and place these things properly in the proper window panes of a Zoom call or whatever it may be. But the timing's got to be impeccable. So you still have to have the template of the actual call. So the script is the script. It's there. You go through the motions and then you kind of fine tune it. That would be how we have to deal with that. But I made the joke. He's like, "Yeah, we're good to go." And I'm like, "Yeah, there's only that one small factor of writing the fucking script." He said, "Small detail." But the script is started. The framework is there for the one that we said we wanted to do. And then we'll deal with the script that we're talking about last week, which is the Happy Trails script that is done. I just want to significantly tweak. But a little bit more movement, but that is not necessarily writing movement. That's next. That will be next.
You know,
I got some travel. So it's instead of me watching documentaries on the plane, when I'm flying out, I should just fucking write. But that's what I've been doing on the same fucking path you've been going down. Not necessarily all the same ones, but they're just easily digestible and they're there. And I'm telling you, that Joe Billinger guy must be raking in the coin because he's attached to fucking all of them. He was the one that I think did the Paradise Lost ones back there. I think he even directed Blair Witch Book of Shadows 2.
He did.
And then did the Sid, not the Sid and Nancy, the one about Kurt and Courtney, I think. He did that one. And now he's behind all of those confessions or tape confessions of the serial killer ones. Pretty much if you're looking at Netflix, probably 70% of the documentaries are from this guy.
Wow, really?
I might be exaggerating that percentage a bit, but everyone that I watch, I'm like, he's attached to this one too. He's attached to this one too. Holy shit. Like there's a lot that he's attached to.
Wow. I didn't realize this. Maybe some of the docs I've watched. Wow, that's crazy.
Probably.
Well, speaking of all that, I was about to start this basically docs to me has spilled. I'm still doing docs, but I'm also doing a lot more found footage. And it's funny because, you watch a real doc, then you watch a found footage faux doc. You know what I mean? You're just like, it's interesting. So it led into it. But I started to watch this one, and I had to watch it again. But you said one take. Apparently, this movie is a one take fucker. I think it's called Night Shot. It's on Tubi from 2018. Now I can't say
legitimately one take, because remember the Silent House, both the regular one and the remake were called one take, but they admittedly said it was just well disguised. Like, if the camera goes into the darkness, you have an opportunity to cut and take it from there, but you've got to nail that segment that plays out. So I love that stuff. I love that idea. Like mainstream wise, that 1912 was great, and it was really well done, but they did that same thing. They just masked where the cuts were. And Hitchcock, whether you like it or not, Hitchcock with rope, that's how he would do it. He tried to guise it with, it'd be a full reel of film, and it would go, someone's back would go into the camera and then come out, and then they would continue the movie. So it made it look like it was one seamless take.
That's cool. No,
sort of. It wasn't really, but for the most part, that was the goal of the film.
I think that this movie is just this girl going into this place trying to do like a YouTube channel thing, which is a very popular freaking thing that they do now on these found footage things. So she has a YouTube channel or something, or doing these little docs, and she's going in, and I think she's the only one that's on the camera, and there's the guy filming it. But obviously things happen to her. What, I don't know. I know it's not very long or anything like that. And I don't know how good it is. But I'm curious about it because some people seem to like it, and it's a one-shot thing. So let me make sure of that. But I also want to, like I said, it's pretty short. So, which is cool. Night Shot. Okay, there's two of them. 2019. Recording the everyday was always a way of relating to the world. One night the rape happened. Wait a minute, this isn't it. Hold on. There's two movies called Night Shot.
Funny enough, so that director's name, because I kind of butchered it, was Joe Berlinger. I think it's something else, but it's just maybe the fact that the ones I've picked, and it may be the AI we're talking about, like I don't know if we're talking about it here or somewhere else, but in Netflix, where it's like what you've watched and it knows, and it just filters through, probably just recommended me more of his movies, more of his docs. But I just watched Madoff one, The Monster of Wall Street.
I was going to get to that.
He did that one. He did Conversations with the Killer, Jeffrey Dahmer. He did with the John Wayne Gacy one. He did Crime Scene, the Times Square Killer, which I watched. So like, this is why it just happened to be all the ones I watched. Confronting the Serial Killer, Crime Scene, The Vanishing at Cecil Hotel. I'm skipping through. He did the movie Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile. Conversations with Ted Bundy, Unspeakable Crime, The Killing of Jessica Chambers, Cold Blooded, The Clutter Family Murders, Gone, The Forgotten Women of Ohio, Intent to Destiny, and of course, back in the day, I'm skipping through a bunch because there's way more documentaries that he did.
What are the best ones?
The Monster Lives, but Whitney, United States of America versus James Whitey.
Whitney, I was gonna say it's a Whitney Houston thing.
No, Whitey
that I haven't seen. Oh, okay.
Whitey
Ford sings the blues.
some Oprah ones, and he did the 3 Paradise Lost ones, which he's really well known for. That's the
Right.
West Memphis 3
Yeah.
ones that kind of started all. And yeah, he did the Metallica Some Kind of Monster as well. And of course, Book of Shadows.
Damn. So what would you recommend of these documentaries?
Well, I like them all, but it's because they're 4 episode. Typically, his are like the 3 or 4 episode ones. All the conversations tape ones were good or great, and I like the Madoff one because I was always kind of fascinated with this giant Ponzi scheme that I'm like, how did this go on for so long? And people were like losing their, like, it's horrible because
I literally know nothing about it. I've only heard that name Madoff because I used to listen to this podcast, the Taz Show. He used to be a wrestler. He's doing commentator now. But they had their own lingo, much like backstage wrestlers do. And they started having like different terms for a baby face and a heel, which is a good guy and a bad guy, because Taz, amongst some other, but they kind of had to all come around to it now, thanks to the freaking dirt sheets and all the smart fans now. Those were terms that were only used by the backstage folks, the wrestlers themselves. People in the industry used term babyface and used term heel for good guy or bad guy. That wasn't, and other people used it that weren't in the wrestling industries. In the industry, it was frowned upon. They didn't like it. That was their thing, and it also broke kayfabe, which is another word that only they used. But when someone says broke kayfabe, it means that it was perceived as not real. It's like the secrets of of wrestling. This is you don't break it. You don't freaking it's like a murta. You know what I mean? You don't break the code. You keep this is what we do. This is how we talk. This is our shit. But because of the dirt sheet writers, all that stuff spread out to the public, and then when the internet came in, it became a floodgates for dirt sheet writers. And it was all them talking to backstage people that were stooging their information. So now all these terms became universal. But a lot of old school wrestlers don't like the fact that the smart fans use these terms so freely. It used to be something, no, that's for us. That's not for them. They're the marks, we're the entertainers. So the thing is this. They didn't want to use the words anymore on the show because, it got out of hand with everybody using them all the time. Like that if you haven't taken a bump, which means, gotten in the ring and done something, you don't deserve to have that lingo. It was a very old school mentality that they hung on to, and that's fine. So they wanted to have new words for baby face and
Madoff became
good guy and bad. Yeah, Madoff became heel. And because the guy called in, they go, I got a good word for a heel, a new word. And he says Madoff. So we'll just say Madoff. And this was back in 2000. Oh God, I don't know. But whatever, something was going on with them. And then that became, and aside from that, I've never heard that name again or before, except used on that show. Yeah. Except for
Bernie Madoff.
He did something bad, huh?
$64 billion in a Ponzi scheme. Like it was funny. Like he would have to get new investors to buy into it so they could do payouts to his other ones, but there's actually no investments happening. So he give residuals back so people would keep their money with him or whatever, but there's actually nothing happening. So he was just funneling it through for his lavish lifestyle. So there's a legitimate side to his business, and then there was this other side that was totally shady, and he had people employed.
What do you call it? The Backstreet Boys guy, the one that I told you about. Yeah. That ended up being a scheme, and that's he's in jail now, or he died. I can't remember. But
you got to work it like it's well made. Again, I like the way that he does his dramatizations and the film. So it's with the regular interview style, but then with reenactments and dramatizations, but not, maybe some people find them cheesy. I think they're really well done, and it's got a nice directorial flair to it. Crime Scene with the Times Square one was really good too, because I never remember hearing about this guy. It starts with two beheaded bodies found in flames in a room, and it goes from there. And it was like, so I think pretty much all of his are very, very good to great. watches.
I'm gonna have to add it to my list then. Crime Scene in New York City or something, you said?
Crime Scene, yeah, the Times Square murders or something to that effect. I took it off. Sorry, I had my phone out.
That's okay, man. No, there it is. The Times Square
like
Killer.
That. Yeah.
3.1.
Yeah, check that
out.
out.
Yeah, I gotta add this to my watch list. Okay, watch list. There you go.
I think any of his you can safely, if you like that, or if you like any of those confessions on tape, then it should be a no-brainer to check out.
I don't think I know what that is. Confessions on tape.
All the like the Ted Bundy's confessions on tape,
and the Bundy
Casey confessions on tape, Jeffrey Dahmer confessions on tape. All of them are worth checking out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Crime Scene. I saw the Cecil Hotel. I saw that. That was pretty cool. Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
It's another version of that.
Unspeakable Crime. You said Jessica Chambers.
I didn't see that one. I was just listing some of the other ones that he did, and so you go on Netflix. There's a good chunk of those there. Maybe not all of them, but a good chunk of them are there.
Wow. This one doesn't get as high as Mark's, but I'm curious about it. Anytime it's involving a child or somebody young. 301 minutes. Whew, man, that's out of control. So what have you watched?
It's like 4 episodes.
No, I know. I hear you. It's just that no one's really seen this one. Well, because it's only getting like 3-star average, and not a lot of people. It's only 10 reviews for it. So I don't know why no one's seeing it unless it's just brand new.
I'll just go by. I'll check it out just based on the fact that I've dug everything else he's created documentary wise. For the most part, I mean, I don't think I've seen a dud, whether it be the Paradise 1, 2, or 3, which were all great, to some of these more modern ones, which I never gave the time of day before. But then suddenly I latched onto it roughly the same time you did, but it was just natural. I was just like, I'll check this out. And it was because I watched that Making a Murderer that my wife watched years ago, and I was binging it on a trip, and I couldn't stop watching. I watched both seasons, and then so I just wanted to consume more. And again, I consumed and just kept consuming. It's better than food because I gained no weight by consumption of these documentaries.
Have you seen well, it'll happen. Have you seen Allen versus Farrell by chance? Woody Allen and Mia Farrow. I highly suggest that one.
I did watch the one that came out with just her a couple years ago. Is that the one?
Yeah, she's on it the whole time.
I feel like I don't believe, like, don't get me wrong, I think he did, but there's certain things that that have been added to it that the kids seem to be admitting to. So you're like, well, how can you discredit it? But she seems very bitter, and I understand why. Like, I'm not saying I agree with what he did, but I feel like she's a little batshit crazy, or she seemingly comes across that way. And the one I watched anyway.
Wow, interesting.
But I'm not saying he didn't do these things. I just feel like she's at a crazy level too. They both don't sit right. Yeah.
Wow.
Again, I stopped watching it because I just was like, I don't really like either of these people. So why am I watching this? And my wife agreed. Carrie and I just both sort of checked out. We're just saying, yeah, this is not for us.
Wow, I really took a lot from it. It was a 4-part thing. Yeah, I don't know what it was on, but it was a 4-episode thing. A look behind the years of sensational headlines to reveal the private story of the accusation of sexual abuse. Yeah, Woody Allen and me. Wow, interesting. I thought it was very well done. It was almost like watching a Leaving Neverland or an R. Kelly one. It was like that level for me, that I thought it was that good and that informative. Wow.
Well, the R. Kelly one I thought was very good, just too long. I never saw Leaving Neverland or the Michael Jackson one. Whatever that was.
That's what what is the other one? Is that it? Leaving Neverland? I think that's what it was. Clue. Oof! Wow.
I hadn't seen that one, and again, it's not the subject matter per se, because that's like, obviously you know that's going to come into play when you're watching something about Woody Allen and Mia Farrow. It's just I don't think he was interviewed for any of it. It was all her being interviewed. This is the one I saw, and it would have clips of him from home videos or interviews,
that's
or
what
whatever.
It is.
But it was her being interviewed in the family. But we were like, yeah, this is not for us. So we just stopped.
Interesting. Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough. Oh, man. I will say to watch this one. I mentioned it last show, but if you get to watch the one, it's called "I Love You Now Die: The Commonwealth versus Michelle Carter." That is interesting because
I
it's
Love You
smart.
Now Die. I'll
Because
put that one in.
Yep, because it's the girl that told her boyfriend to commit suicide and then he did. But there's so much to the story that it's presented a really cool way. There's 2 episodes of it, I think. I think it's 2 episodes, and it's the first half is the defense and the second half is the prosecution. Either way, you get to look at it and really think about it and debate within yourselves what you think about this and have discussions and rationalize and see. It's really interesting. All I can tell you is that the pill that both of them were on, I'm on. How about that? And I was watching it like shortly after getting on it. I was watching this thing. And I was like, wait a minute. And they go, yeah, it's determined that he was on this and that she was also on it. And I go, wait a minute. So now I look it up. I go, this sounds familiar. Sure enough, it's the stuff that they're giving me. I'm like, holy shit. And they were both effed up in the head. One of them killed himself. And the other one, anyway, I would suggest it.
I recommend also Sons of Sam if you haven't watched that one.
I heard that I watched like the first 15 minutes.
Really?
I heard it was so like over sensationalized and really conspiracy theory without any real things to back it up. So
I thought there was enough to back it up. I never heard this story before because again, the guy. So it's following a guy that lived down the street, was consumed by this case, and every path that it led down to felt like there was more to tell of the story, but because he was so passionate about it, really just came across as a loony conspiracy theorist. He wrote a book. It was a bestseller. Most people thought he was just trying to make money off of it. So you make his own judgment, but he really died wanting to know the truth. And funny enough, it ends on a note that like there was truth to some of the things that he thought of, like one avenue at least. So it ends on a stinger note, but it's definitely worth checking out because I never ties to like Manson or a cult and things like that. I'm like, what? I never knew this. I thought it was a serial killer in New York with a gun, and that it was never reopened because they just thought it was more really conspiracy theory, and maybe it was, but it's worth checking out based on making your own judgments on it. But one of the avenues he went down led to him being correct on something. One aspect. Wow. I'm not talking about the bigger picture, but one aspect. So I remember watching going, holy shit. And it's kind of sad because the guy, his life, he literally could not, he was so absorbed by it, consumed by it, that he couldn't let it go or do anything else. And he died without any closure. So.
Wow. So you're going to tell me that you believe that the Son of Sam killings were not just done by David Berkowitz, that someone else killed?
I'm not going to go that far, but I would say that the evidence that he pulled out and did, I think, leads some credibility that he wasn't alone. And it starts with, and I'm not going to give anything away because if you made it 15 minutes in, it might only be 30 more minutes. Like I forgot, like in that first episode, but like that, even the composite drawing of one of the people, they say composite drawings a lot of times. Again, I from this show, I didn't research this any further, so this is information regurgitated from this show. That composite drawings are typically 70% like look very close to the person that ends up committing the crime, and this did not look anything like Sam Berkowitz.
I've seen it before, that composite drawing of Berkowitz, but
so it's interesting where they go and like, anyway, again, it's no different than those ones that came out after 9/11 in a sense, but those ones never actually got major. It was like Loose Change or whatever. And there was another one that came out about all the conspiracy theorists about 9/11 and whatnot. Interesting. I still love it because I love the rabbit hole these guys go down. I don't necessarily buy into all of it, like that they hit a plane and these survivors are somewhere else. Like there's one version of that movie that plane that crashed in was all covered up and those people are safe and in on the conspiracy. I'm like, come on, that's a hard pill to swallow there. But some of the other things you can sort of buy based on how it was presented, but I don't go down that route. But I find it good entertainment. So as an entertainment piece, it's still very interesting to watch because it's something fascinating about conspiracy theories, but I don't necessarily buy into it. But I'm still fascinated by it.
No, I am too, and I like a lot. I like Jesse Ventura's take on the. I'll leave it at that with the 9/11. But some things there to me make sense when it's explained. I'm like, yeah, how could this happen unless? And when you start rationalizing certain things, it worked. But I do like that stuff. And that's another documentary, the Jesse Ventura show, when he was doing that for all this different conspiracy theories. That's on my list that I'll get to.
Yeah,
but I'll tell you what I've been watching quick, because it isn't quite as much, but it's there. So you know, you know what I did? I did a couple second chances, even though that's one of the things that I put on the thing for our show for the drawing. I said, you know what?
Listen.
I want to give this a second chance and this, and I did actually 2 or 3 movies. So this is where I think I left. Okay, yeah. So I watched Blair Witch again. Blair Witch is in the 3rd movie that was made.
I really like that one.
See, I did too. And I want to watch it again because I've been talking to, like I keep telling you, the found footage people, and a lot of people don't like it. And a lot of people that are fans of Blair Witch don't like it. And I was like, what am I missing here? Why? Maybe I just got, I want to see, is this as good as I thought it was? And here's what I think it is. I think that having the title Blair Witch on it hurts the movie. I think that people had expectations, and I think that if this movie just would have continued to have been called The Woods, like it originally was marketed as when they did that thing, and just made a similar thing like a Blair Witch, and done it that way, it had a similar story, and just at the beginning say, hey, you know, somebody's sister went missing so long ago, and this was a video, and then not make it exactly the Blair Witch, because similar story, which is, it's going to be hard to do, and it's going to draw comparisons to Blair Witch. But I still think there's been a bunch of Blair Witch ripoffs anyway, so why not? But I think if this movie just came out and wasn't tied directly to Blair Witch, I think that people would be loving it. They'd be saying, oh, because you see this all the time with these found footage movies that drop and people love them. When I watch the movie, I don't really see what's wrong with it.
I it's got 7.5 from me. I like it.
Yeah, that's like me.
A lot,
yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know, people. Watch it again if you saw it once. Give it a second chance. I mean, my second chance just reaffirmed what I thought the first time. So I'm fine with it still. But
I've watched it 3 times now. And the first time I watched it out of the gate, and I think I said, that's good, but I wasn't. And then the second time I'm like, no, this is great. Because I got into it because of the video game. And I was putting the video game and going, this is great if you like exploration and whatever. It was a lot of fun. So then I went back and I watched all 3 of them. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's great. But yeah, people have a stick up their ass for certain things.
Yeah, I don't know. Check it out again. That's all I could say. Now, this is the first one that I've watched that was on my found footage list. Not my challenge list that I gave you, but just movies that I hadn't seen yet that I wanted to. And it let me down. It was called The Woodsman. I only gave it 2 stars out of 5 on whatever the hell, Letterboxd. So a bit of a letdown there. Not enough happens. Now, I wanted to watch A Cure for Wellness again. Since, as you recall, I was kind of disappointed that year with it. I enjoyed it. It was fine. You know, but I wanted to give it another chance. It's been a while, and I only saw it at the theater that year and everything, and I owned the damn thing. So I'm like, let's do it. I get to see Mia. Let's watch this fucking movie, you know? So, well, I will tell you what, it worked. I really liked the movie. It's really set up well. It's cool. It's almost like an E24 film for a lot of the ways. It's almost like
beautifully shot.
Yeah. Interesting story. It just gets batshit crazy in the 3rd act. But
a little too much.
But it's almost fun that way. Because this is what I think the problem is. I think because it's such a serious toned film for most of it, and then when some of the reveals happen, it almost goes into like too far into something that you wouldn't have expected from a movie like this, where all of a sudden it goes into like mad science territory, and this guy's they've been alive all these years and everything else, and he reveals his face and he looks like something else underneath, and it just, the tone of it, because of what happens there, I could see being off-putting, because like I said, it was like an A24 film feel for the most of it. It was pretty serious, and then it just goes there. And I think that's what it was. But watching it this time, I really like it. And I'd say it's an 8 out of 10 now. So before it was like a 7. But I think it's quite cool. It's interesting. You're not going to have every question answered. You just got to go with it. And I think you're fine. It is what it is, you know?
I think I was at a 7 too. I haven't had the need to go rewatch it, but I remember enjoying it. Thought it was really well done. And then it just went a little too kooky at the end, but I should give it another chance.
It's long. That's the issue. It's like 2.5 hours. But yeah, it is really well shot. I will tell you that. It looks really cool. It's good stuff. So I recommend checking it again. June 9th is a found footage movie. I gave it a 3.5. Webcast, recent, 3.5. So good stuff. Another movie has made the found footage challenge list. And this was a movie that Jason Smith mentioned a long time ago on his channel when he was talking about found footage, underrated movies. And I finally got a chance to see it. It's called Evidence. It's from 2011. Yeah, it's cool. It's a short movie. Seems longer than it is, but that's not a bad thing. It's 78 minutes, but a lot happens. But it's set up one way, and then it goes into something completely different that you never see coming, and then it just gets that gets batshit crazy too. And not everything is explained, but it's just done so well, and you really feel it. So Evidence, I give 4. So I give it like 8 out of 10, and it's going on the fucking challenge list. So there you go. Fresh Dressed was the other one that I saw. The documentary is all about hip hop fashion from the beginning, and all that stuff is really cool. It's just the last half hour I didn't care about as much, because then it got into like modern stuff like Sean John and FUBU and everything else that comes and goes, and different labels, but the history, anything involving like old school hip hop, because it begins in the 70s in New York City, and just cool stuff. It's really worth it for that. Now, I finally gave this movie a second chance with everyone that loves it so much, and I thought I missed out on something. I always liked it, but I didn't understand all the love. I finally rewatched Hell House LLC, and I'll tell you what, I don't know what the hell I was thinking the first time with the end and the thing at the end, which I thought was the epilogue. I just must have thought that one character was another and screwed something up. And the ending is fucking great. And I mean, they don't show enough in the climax, which is fine, because they kind of show it in the beginning. You get the gist of it. I think at the time I wanted to see a little more, and that was kind of a letdown that I didn't. But I guess that's not really the.
You think they need 3 movies of it though?
Well, I started the second one. I'm halfway through it, and I'm enjoying it because it's right off the bat going into the horror and the stuff that happened and different stuff.
They're all
and
enjoyable.
I really like the lead girl. Well, I don't know if she's the lead girl. She's one of, again, really attractive. So, and that's what made me think about this. I'm like, am I really into this because of her, or is it not her?
Well, but for some reason, I got this mistaken with The Houses That October Built, and that one I'm not that fond of.
Fair,
those two, and
fair.
I've watched this series, this trilogy twice now. Funny enough, because I watched it, and Christian was watching it with me, and he was like, "You know what?" And my son, I'm not talking to myself in the third person, and he wanted to rewatch it at Halloween time again. So then I had watched it in the spring, and I'm like, "Well, I really should have saved this for Halloween." So when Halloween came, he's like, "Dad, why don't we watch those movies again?" I didn't watch the director's cut though, because there's a director's cut of part 1 that I think is significantly longer. I think like a half an hour longer.
What?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, there's Hell House LLC and then LLC director's cut. Check it out. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's like 2 hours and change.
What? Are you serious?
I will look it up while you're talking.
Wow.
But I'm 99.9% sure.
That's crazy, man. Wow. Well, I really did enjoy it, and I'm telling you, I end up going from a 7.5 to an 8.5. That's up. That's high up there, and it's obviously on my list now. It's on the found footage list, the challenge list. So really, really dug it this time. So yeah, I'm gonna watch the other 2. And then, gee, that's where I left off. I have watched more, but the other one that I watched yesterday, I showed it to my wife and daughter. Cake Jerk It. Remember Cake Jerk It?
I like Pie Wacket a
Pie
lot.
Whack It.
Well, again,
I thought
say like
maybe
7 to 7.5 is where I say I liked it. I didn't mean to cut you off there. Sorry, bud.
no. There you initially I gave it a 7, and I didn't understand why people were so into it. I said I just think they like the name. That's what I kept saying. I'm like, because I think it's good. I just don't think it's like people are talking like it was in people's top 5 that year. I'm like, what, really? So I watched it yesterday, and I did like it a little more. Not a whole lot more. The ending is fucking great. I'll tell you that. It is funny that like my wife and daughter saw it, even though it's only an hour and 28 minutes long, they felt that it moved slow. And I think they left a couple things out that they should have maybe told us about. Like when her one friend, what did she actually see that she couldn't get out of the car the next morning and she just wanted to leave? It was cool, and you don't have to know. I get it. Just would have been nice to know or them to show it. And then what happens at the end, there's room for debate of why she thought this and not this. So we talked about it. It's funny because Francesca was like, well, she goes, I thought it was just okay until the end. And she loved the end. She's just like her daddy. She fucking likes certain type of ending. And she's like, yeah, because they didn't chicken out. They went there. So I still like it. I would give it a 7.5. I'd come up a little bit, but I still don't see the overall love. I mean, it's cool. I don't know. But it's good stuff,
Yeah. Just to answer the LLC thing while you're talking about it, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to very good. Pie Wacket. There is a director's cut. One thing made it look like it was over 2 hours. Another thing just said it added about 9 or 10 minutes to the film. So I don't know which one is legit, but there is a director's cut version that has more footage. Yeah. So
I'm curious. I gotta find out. So have you watched anything or no?
Just the Madoff documentary, since the last show. I just had it. I had it here and then I took it off. The Madoff one, Ghislaine Maxwell, Filthy Rich. That's the female Jerry Epstein girl.
Oh, yeah, that's on my list. That's on my list too. Just like the Madoff is. And
then Feud City, New York versus the Mafia documentary. That was on Netflix as well.
Nice, man.
I feel like there was something else, but I'm not going to jump back into my
I feel there was there was a few things I didn't log, I think, on my letterbox, and I'll do that sometime. If I don't do it right after, I'll forget, and I'm like, shit. I feel like there's more documentaries, or maybe even another found footage movie, but I can't say for certain. But there's been a good share of stuff. I'll tell you that. I've been hitting documentaries and found. You know what I started? I started watching Dear Mama, which is the new Tupac documentary. It's like 4 or 5 parts, and I just watched the first one, and I can already tell you it's really great. So I would recommend it.
Yeah,
it's really cool. Even if you're not into Tupac all that much, it's pretty cool. So it's a lot of Black Panther stuff in the early days and everything else, and so. I don't know. So we do have one more thing to talk about before we get into the reviews. Summer sausage, huh?
Oh yeah, we totally forgot to talk about this last week.
Yeah, and I don't even know what's going to happen.
Idiots.
I want to see what you think about this. Most people like the idea. There's like 1 or 2 detractors. There's been a couple things thrown out there.
Chris A.K. Scott, you could say it.
He's one. Yeah. But
well. You can't please everybody, but we have to go with the majority. So it's happening. I personally, if we want to put it to a vote, we could put it to the vote. If we're going to do Hellraiser, I think we should do it with Frankenstein.
All right.
I know you love the grunge movies.
For some reason. Still.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we don't do enough classic horror. We've done the Wolfman recently. And I think maybe it's time now that we go back and visit the Universal Frankenstein. So wait a second here. There are that many. It can't just be the Universal ones, can it? For Frankenstein?
I thought it was. I wrote it Universal Frankenstein.
I guess there's Sons of Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, Ghost of Frankenstein. Yeah. So maybe Frankenstein meets the Wolfman.
Let's see.
Bride of Frankenstein, Frankenstein. Well, that's only 5. Which one am I missing here?
Hold on now. Let's see.
I'm all of them.
Hold up. Okay. Let's see. Frankenstein, Bride, Son, Ghost, Meets the Wolfman, House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Oh, that's it. House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula are Universal ones?
Frankenstein Universal Film Series. That's what it says here.
Okay.
At least on IMDb. I don't know. That's what it says on IMDb.
Well, so, I will watch them again, but I watched Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein already this year. So I'm off to a good start.
Yeah, these are all Universal. So that's 8 of them. I could do it, man. I could do it. Why the fuck not? They're probably easy. I think I own them. I think I have the Frankenstein set. Actually, it's right here. I'm going to see what's on it. I'm curious. Let's see what made the cut.
I had the Universal set, and I think it's just Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, I believe.
The Legacy Connect collection.
Oh, you got that. Oh, yeah, that should have.
Let's see.
At least 5
Frankenstein, Bride, Son, Ghost, Wolfman, House of Dracula, House of Frankenstein, Abbott and Costello. That's the 8 that are on this set. So I got the whole Blu-ray set, man. I'm fucking rocking and rolling here.
You are rocking and rolling. So there it is. See? Summer series. Is that next episode? Summer sausage. Yeah. Fuck. Oh, Jesus.
Hold on.
Shoot me.
It's up to you, buddy. It's 8 episodes. So it could either be June and July or August, and we could wait. And then
let's do June and July. But the reason I'm saying that is because the Frankenstein movies tend to be a little shorter. And I'm just feeling like June, well, nothing's going to be fantastic, but June, I think I'm hit with more travel and obstacles than I will be in July. But I don't know if that's actually that accurate, because July is just going to have, I think weekends are more free in July, with the exception of the end. I know I'm going to be away. So I think I could still work it out. So that's why I think we should maybe start it June and July.
Rock and roll. That's it. I'm down. I'm down with it. So, by the way, if anyone who's watching, I'm cold down here. So that's why I got a fucking jacket and a hood on, because the basement's fucking cold because of the damn air conditioning. Basement is just fucking cold. And then I go to bed at night, it's hot. It's fucking.
I'm in the basement too, and it's now there's definitely a difference in temperature.
Word. Yeah, man. It's not, I had the heater right on. I have a space heater, but I don't put it on when we do the show because it makes noise. So we want to give the listeners, a good sounding show. So yeah, I'm not going to have fans, and it's a loud thing, right? So there was 2 more little quick things I thought about that I wanted to say. They're little quickies, and then we do our movies. Number 1, speaking of it, there's another Blair Witch movie coming out now.
I didn't know that.
This?
Nope.
And guess what the title is? The Blair Witch.
Isn't that the same one as 2016?
2016, which is called Blair Witch.
Just Blair Witch. Okay.
So we've had the Blair Witch.
The Evil Dead.
Yeah. The Blair Witch Project, Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, Blair Witch, The Blair Witch. Fucking, I think
What's
it's
the 5th
kind of
one going to
lame.
be called? Blair Witch?
Yeah, right. It's just going to be called Blair.
That's for political correctness.
And it's gonna star Blair from fucking Facts of Life in it too. Blair. That would be cool. She should be in there.
Fucking Blair. Where did that come from?
Why not? Because I like Blair. I think Blair should be. If I was directing a Blair Witch Project, even a cameo, a fucking walk on for a second doing an interview, who gives a fuck? Why not have Blair in there? Lisa Whelchel. Why not have her in there?
She's still acting?
I doubt it. Has she been acting in fucking 20 years? Let's find out.
What? This is the first I've heard of her since the fucking Facts of Life aired.
Oh, well, let's see.
I don't know why I ran out of oxygen there.
Patrick, born in 1963. Let's think. 2023 Collector's Call. 1 episode.
There you go.
Tune in with me. She played herself. Aurora, You Light Up My Christmas. Falling for Christmas. Oh, she's doing some of these for better or for worse.
Oh my God, she's doing the Hallmark Christmas movies.
Medea's Christmas she was in. Wow.
She loves Christmas movies.
Apparently. Yeah, how about that? Blair Warner. Yep, good old Blair Warner. Man, I loved her when I was young. I don't know about you. But yeah.
Blair and Joe.
And Joe. Agreed. Yep.
Until I found out that it was Angela from Sleepaway Camp.
That's funny, man.
If that goes over anybody's head, then fucking get off the show or stop listening.
Whatever. It's Nancy McKeon. That's Joe. Yeah. Yeah.
She's playing the dark-haired girl in The Facts of Life.
Loved those girls. And loved what's her name too? Justine Bateman on fucking Family Ties.
Yeah.
Man, always loved her. Man. Anyway, and one more thing I saw. You know
Tina
the
Young?
walking Tina Young.
No one ever talked about Tina Young.
You mean Tina Yothers?
Oh, Yothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why no one talked about Tina Young, because it didn't exist.
Yeah, she didn't exist. How about the other kid they brought in at the end? It was kind of like a Cousin Oliver situation, remember?
Oh, they brought Leonardo DiCaprio? No, that wasn't that one. That was Growing Pains.
What? Grumpades? What did you say?
Growing Pains.
Oh, Growing Pains. I think you said Grumpades. That was Grumpades.
Yeah.
That was Grumpades. Okay. It was Grumpades. Grumpy guy with AIDS. They call him Grumpades. You know, some people handle people, handle it with a grain of salt. Some people are grumpy until they die. Grumpades. I don't want those pills. It's not going to help me. I'm just got AIDS and I'm grumpy about it.
I just got AIDS. What the fuck?
Nothing funny about it, of course. But that's like some B would have said that. Grumpy AIDS. So anyway, yeah. But that little kid that came in, he was kind of like a Cousin Oliver, right? We don't need those characters. So anyway, one more thing. They stopped The Walking Dead, and it just seems like they didn't stop it. Because we keep seeing this.
Is there a new one coming out, isn't there?
And there's still Fear the Walking Dead, which I don't know how the fuck that show's lasted all this time. I think it's still going. There's some other side project coming. Now I hear that there's supposed to be a show with Laurie Cohen with fucking Megan. Oh my God.
Megan?
Well, no. What is her name? No, Maggie and Negan. I combined them. I call them Megan. It's like fucking like they do with like Hollywood power couples. They combine them together. So Megan.
Bennifer?
Anyway, yeah, Bennifer. Here's what I don't understand. I haven't watched the show in a while. So they're together? Negan is the guy that killed Glenn, and Glenn was Maggie's boyfriend. So you're telling me that fucking Maggie hooked up with fucking Negan?
Wait, Glenn dies? I read the comic, so I'm going by the comic. I stopped watching that season when Glenn was supposed to die. I just, for whatever reason, that was when I was done with the show. I should go back and kind of take it from there and finish it off, but we'll see.
I stopped watching that season as well, but not that episode. I was like 3 episodes in. I remember that. And had nothing to do with Glenn dying. I mean, that was actually good TV. I thought.
I don't know if I even made it to that episode. It just happened to be that season.
Yeah, me too.
Or maybe it
after
was
a couple,
but it wasn't because of that. Just for whatever reason, he's got Walking Dead out, which is weird because I'm the big zombie fan on the show.
Word. Yeah, I don't know what happened. We just fell out of it and didn't go back. But I'm so confused. How were those two hooked up when he killed her boyfriend? What the fuck, Maggie?
Supposedly he becomes sort of heroic and erotic. Erotic. We're combining
it's a combination. Heroic and erotic. Erotic.
Who the fuck knows? But
unless
I don't understand because there's The Walking Dead City coming out. It is not ending. I don't know why they bother ending it. Just
I know.
Essentially do an offshoot.
They should have kept it going if it's not going to die. But apparently people want to see it. So, so be it.
Power to them.
Yeah. So that's about
Maybe one time I'll go back and check it out. But Yeah.
Yeah, So I guess we're all set then. Let me check my notes and make sure there's nothing we forgot. Or I forgot to bring up, I should say. But
And I got the
oh
movie ready. Oh,
man,
you did forget something. What is it?
if I have it, if I have it. Let's see if I have this thing saved. Is there a way? How do you save fucking videos? Damn it. Have you ever saved like a reel before?
Yeah, I
Like your
have.
account? Okay. Do you know how to access them? Oh wait, reels.
Not off
Hold
the
on.
top of my it should just
Hold
be
on.
saved reels.
Whoa. I didn't save this one. I just had to hit reels and some other thing came up. So I guess I thought I saved the reel, but apparently I didn't. Because I hit it, I just don't know where it goes. Reels. So
Oh,
let's see here.
great story,
Oh,
bro.
that sucks. I'll have to save it for next time, but it was something funny, man. It was
I
something
thought I
funny.
saved it, but I didn't save it.
I saved that. I just don't know where to find saved reels. There's got to be a place, but I don't want
Yeah,
to.
there's got to be a place.
If you click reels, it just shows reels. But oh wait, hold on, saved.
Oh
There's a
my
save
God.
section.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a save section here. Okay, this is everything saved. Chris, let's see if I can find it. Oh, this is
What
saved
do you mean?
items.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a reel, but it was saved 7 weeks ago. Where the hell are you? Oh well, can't find it. Sorry, folks, it ain't there. Damn. Unless it's only me. TVs and movies, only me. I have a lot of things saved for only me.
maybe that will be a cliffhanger.
Yeah, sorry, it'll be a cliffhanger. It's not. It's the moment's been
Keep
lost.
the show moving here.
Yeah, we gotta move it. All right, let's talk about these movies.
Well, let's talk about 1979's The Brood, directed by and written by David Cronenberg, starring, of course, Oliver Reed, Samantha Eggar, Art Hindle, and others. And this is off the B, where we like to take our synopses from. Well, this is a really long one. Holy fuck.
Make up your own.
Yeah. A man's wife is under the care of an eccentric and unconventional psychologist who uses innovative and theatrical techniques to breach the psychological blocks in his patients. When their daughter comes back from a visit with her mother and is covered with bruises and welts, the father attempts to bar his wife from seeing the daughter, but faces resistance from the secretive psychologist. Meanwhile, the wife's mother and father are attacked by strangely deformed children, and the man begins to suspect a connection with the psychologist's methods. Holy fuck, that was long.
Right? Wow. I've always really enjoyed this movie. This was always my favorite Cronenberg until I rediscovered my love for The Fly. So, it's very much horror.
Very creepy.
Compared to, yeah.
Very creepy movie. The killer mutant kids are creepy. And again, it's one of those movies that I can see people maybe having a bit of a problem with nowadays. Again, depends on your taste. It feels very 70s, which I think is great. Mm-hmm. Filmed well, as you could be expected. The score is great.
Mm-hmm. Howard Shore.
And it's very, it gets under your skin.
Yeah, dude. It is creepy. It's creepy with the body horror stuff. I mean, there isn't a whole hell of a lot of it, but
it's more the reveal. But it's again things that he kind of I've used this before with him, with Cronenberg, I should say. It's like when Shivers or They Came From Within, the Rabid, the Brood, Videodrome. It's almost like he's building upon the same thematic elements in each one, and then just pushing it a little bit further. And this one is the big reveal at the end. So you get these mutant kids that are causing the murders and havoc, but you get this reveal at the end where you see her uterus and them suckling off of her or whatever. It's it's really kind of creepy and gross, and she licks it. Imagine acting that scene out.
Oh yeah, man. That is a great scene, though. I mean, that's a standout, is her doing her thing and then biting into the freaking sack, and the birthing is great. Well, and I like her.
Oh yeah, I like all of them. Like Oliver Reed, as much as I consider him like a very theatrical, possibly overacting, but I don't think he goes to that realm. It's not, you're not like, you don't believe him, but he's just very theatrical in his performances. Because he was in Burnt Offerings, right? Which we did. Very similar.
Oh,
I'm almost
wow.
positive it's him in that. But that's the
It
type of
is.
actor that he is. But he's perfect in this role as a psychologist. Like everybody's well cast in this movie. The dude is from Black Christmas, right? The main dude is the
Wow.
boyfriend for Black Christmas.
Wow, dude. Holy cow. I didn't even
Not
realize that, but
the one that is pigeonholed as
father.
the, yeah.
Yeah.
What?
The father.
No. I know, but the character of Black Christmas, not the boyfriend that you is kind of the red herring as the killer, but
Right.
the other boyfriend, the helpful one.
Wow, man. Didn't he play hockey? Wasn't he the hockey goalie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very Canadian. Very Canadian. Well, this is filmed in Canada. It's supposed to be right. I mean, it's Cronenberg.
I mean, he was
So
also in Porky's too. So another very Canadian.
Bob
So you got
Clark.
three very Canadian movies: Black
It's very
Christmas. Well, again, Black Christmas and Porky's were Bob Clark. They were filmed in Canada. They're Canadian, considered Canadian, even though Bob Clark is not. And of course,
right.
The Brood. I mean, he has way more credits to his name, but those are ones that sort of ring true with anybody from that era.
Yeah. Well, how about that? I didn't even realize that that was that dude from Black Christmas. That's cool. That's cool. And the other body horror from the other guy with the scarf around his neck.
Oh,
That thing,
yeah,
right?
Videodrome,
Here's
dude, or
yeah.
not Videodrome.
No, what
Uh,
is it? It's Cronenberg,
Jason
right?
X. It's Jason X. He plays one of the space cowboys on that ship, the one that you see via the video. He's in that too.
Really?
He's
Was
got
he
to be in something else,
Dallas?
right?
Oh
Oh no,
no.
that's what it was. Um, he plays the creepy in Prom Night, the creepy um gardener guy that is like total
Oh
like dun 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 red herring. He's the killer.
wow,
He plays
man.
that creepy guy. That's who. I knew there was another
Wow.
connection as we're watching. I'm like, that's where, and then I was like, oh yeah, Prom Night,
Dude, you're
red
on
herring
it.
#1.
You're on it though. That's good though. See, I should have known better. Even though I'm not feeling so good, and I don't have a whole lot of notes. It's Cronenberg, so you're bringing it. You're making this interesting to listen to because I didn't realize these things. So
Well,
that's
it's whether it's interesting or not. It's more just
it
like
is.
those cool little factoids. His name was Robert A. Silverman, and his reveal is gross, like that neck wound,
Yeah, dude. It's
whatever. Like
gross. That shit
man,
bugs me.
essentially manifestation of he's actually in Scanners and Naked Lunch too. So he was a Cronenberg regular. And the fact that Cronenberg was in Jason X, I guess was a tie for that as well. A
Right.
tie in for there too. So but yeah, like the unconventional doings of the psychologist essentially manifests the horror.
Mm-hmm. Dude,
Now, sorry, go ahead.
no. I like the lead guy, the father, more so than I usually like the lead men in Cronenberg movies, excluding Jeff Goldblum, of course. But I'm saying, okay, excluding the Dead Zone as well.
Well, he's got to
Okay.
be, because he's more grounded in reality. He's like, what the fuck is going on here? My daughter just spent time with uh my wife. She's locked up for essentially sort of some sort of mental breakdown or mental issues, and then comes back with all these bruises and welts on the body. And so like you do what any father would do. You're like, you're
Oh,
not going back there, right?
you sympathize 100%. That's the same thing I would do when I've been in a situation like that. And I also know how it goes, and I know what the guy says that freaking they believe in motherhood, the system, and if you try something, it's going to come back and you're going to look bad and you got to watch your every move. And it is very political with all that stuff. And it's unfortunate, but just trying to be a good father. And just like the guy even says later when he's doing the therapy, he's just being a good father. He's just doing what you would expect a good father to do, which protect his child ultimately. And, Nola wasn't protected, which see, okay.
Were there
There's
daddy
some,
issues? Is
I
that what they
like
were
the lead.
insinuating there?
It isn't.
There's well, not just that. I'm oversimplifying it, but wasn't there some issue? Like, I know the father like comes back to the house and everything like that, but wasn't there a disconnect? Like he abandoned her, he left or whatever, and so I think that was some of the issues there too. I know that I've read. I think we've like if you read up about this movie, you're going to know that this comes after Cronenberg's divorce. So there's like that plays into this with the separation of parents, and then there's the fear of parenthood, which comes through as well, but also mental anguish, which again, if you read it, where he takes it though, is it's not so simple because you get this science fiction-esque aspect of it, which is the horror element as well, which is it manifests into reality, which I've always been intrigued by. Stuff that like is something that like mental turns physical.
Yeah. Well, but that's
Body,
true.
well, that's Cronenberg in a nutshell, I guess.
I mean, and mental does turn physical, and that's another theme about Cronenberg. And you don't usually hear about it. You hear body horror, and he's lumped into it, and it's like he basically created it. Some will say, but it's like the thing about Cronenberg is he always has love, relationships, and sex stuff in his movies, and he doesn't get really. I'm not saying the credit. It doesn't seem to come up nearly as much as it does for like people think about Clive Barker and they think about he always has like not twisted sex stuff, but he always has like erotic tones in throughout his stuff. You don't usually think about it when you talk about Cronenberg. People go right to body horror, but there is the relationship stuff. Just about every movie, there's something going on between a heterosexual couple. It seems every movie there's a lead and there's an issue with the ex or the current, or there's a new love, or things are going on. It happens a lot. Even to the thing about there's a line in this movie, and they also have a similar thing in The Fly about they still have the key to the apartment. Remember in The Fly that he still had the key, and then she came home and he was showering in her bathroom?
Yeah.
Remember that? The ex that she works for? And then the old man says in this, we've been divorced 10 years and I still have the key. She never wanted to change the lock or something. Maybe she thought I was going to come back. And then the guy says a similar thing in The Fly. He goes, I left it here. I figured, you didn't change it. So
that's a very interesting parallel.
Maybe something happened in Cronenberg's life involving the key, or maybe it's very
maybe just stems from that divorce from his wife. Well, like you said, like we were just saying right before, this was personal to him because he just went through the divorce. The parents of the woman are divorced. They're obviously going through some problems because she's in a hospital and he's not. So they're separated at the very least. So that theme is throughout, and yeah, maybe that sadness of like having that key and being. And you're right. It's interesting that you drew that comparison. I didn't even think of it until you brought it up now.
Well, in all fairness, this came up. We did a thing on Skeleton Crew, and Jamie is as big a Cronenberg fan as you are. It's her favorite, director.
I didn't even, I don't think I knew that. So
yeah, and
we awesome.
We did a thing where we talked about 3 movies. One was The Fly, one was The Brood, and the third was either Scanners or Videodrome. I think Videodrome. I think is what it was. And I think we brought that up on that show about the key. I don't know who brought it up or what it was, but I remember that. And then I forgot about it. I knew it happened. I just didn't know what movies. Of course, I remembered it from The Fly. But then I'm watching The Brood yesterday. I'm like, that was it. So that is really interesting. And I think her daddy issue, I think she has more just parental issues. It's her mother. It seems to me that the mother has some psychological problems. She was abusive to her daughter, and I'm going to guess her husband in a manner of speaking, but it seems like he got himself into a position where he didn't even want to intervene when the mother was hitting his child, their child together, which it's going to take an awful lot for it would never happen for me, but I understand what he's going for in the movie where he turned her back. In other words, he didn't want to get involved, and then he has to have another altercation with this crazy woman that he has to live with because of what's going on. So he turns his back while, she hits the child instead of arguing with her because he doesn't want to argue about anything else, which is a shitty way to be, but it speaks to what the mental state that he got in as a result, more than likely, of the abuse, or how he had to walk on eggshells from living with this woman, which I've been in a position like that before. Difference is, under no circumstance, and it never did happen, thank goodness, but if she ever did lay a hand on my daughter, there's no way, nothing, and wild horses couldn't pull me away from going after her or intervening. So, and it is shitty that it happened, but that seems to be the issue, because she says, I love you, Daddy, I love you, and she does love him. She loves him so much because it's the parental figure that never hurt her, at least not physically, as opposed to the mother, who apparently is off her rocker a little bit.
Yeah, well, what's presented. So that's where, so these manifestations of the mutant sort of kids comes from this fact of like destroying anything that has sort of wronged her in the past, like that is causing her mental anguish. Now, now she might not know about the school teacher. Well, she does know about the school teacher though when she phones the house. So I guess that's the connection that links her thinking that maybe her husband's cheating on her or something.
Yeah, of course.
Which then sends the kids after her. Which, if you think about when you think about the that sequence, that is straight out. Like when I watch this time, I'm like, oh, this is a Dave Z scene. Murder in front of kids. Like they're witnessing the whole thing.
Dude. And done so well. And I don't know if we talked about this on the Skeleton Crew, or if I talked about it some other time, and I don't know any of this to be a fact, but you would think that the children in this room that didn't even know this was going to happen when they made it, but it's almost like the director didn't tell them, because the shocked look on some of their faces, obviously the kid that runs out and does his thing, he looks great. Could they have all just been that great of actors? Yes. Especially as kids, it's easy to be good actors. It seems, to a degree. I don't know why.
Well, they can come off pretty phony, or they might think of it as a big joke. So somehow they encapsulated exactly what you're saying, where there just looks like true horror on their faces. And do you remember, on a side note, do you remember being in those one-piece suits as kids?
Of course,
I remember having one of those
to play in them. Yeah, dude, we all did.
Yeah, I could barely move. I mean, they make a joke of it in Christmas Story, but yeah, that's how I remember it too. It's hilarious.
100%, man. Yeah, I used to love playing out there. You had to be bundled up to go out there. I'll say this: I do have a little bit of a problem. Well, no, let me say this first. This is so metaphorical, and it's so cool, because if you think about it, this woman. This is basically saying that whether you want to do it or not, even if it's you don't, like, she doesn't realize that these things are being sent out to kill these things. Okay?
Yeah.
The metaphor, what they're saying is that if you've been through trauma and you have that baggage, you are going to hurt other people that you may be closest with, or if you have an issue with them, because you have brought that baggage of the trauma with you. It's a metaphor, except
a metaphor and literally a manifestation of that, of that mental illness. And that's what's great about this movie. This is exactly what you described a few shows ago, where it's not shoved down your throat. Don't get me wrong, it's there, it exists, and that's why you can deep dive into this movie, but you can still watch it as a piece of entertainment, as a straight ahead horror film. And if that's all you want from it, you could be fine, and we'll have a great time with it. However, there's more layers to it, and it's great. And when you find it, when you read about or listen to interviews or whatever it may be, and realize I was going through a divorce, and it worked its way into the script, then you realize how much more personal it is, and why that is more important to when, and it gives it much more in the way of repeated viewings, if you will, because you can look at it for so many different ways. And it's not the only thing. It's not just wearing that on its sleeve or anything like that. It's there. It's subtle. You realize this after hearing those interviews and whatever. Holy shit, that's why this plays into it, or this is what this could mean too. But the other stuff of what you just mentioned with the baggage essentially becoming flesh and coming after people. It's great.
A manifestation. And you know, I confess, I never really thought about this until last night. So I guess maybe it's just, maybe it comes with different thinking or age or something, or watching a movie multiple times and then coming to that realization, which, see, and you said it like I said it a few weeks ago, like you were mentioning. These are the great movies where you can take it as a straight up horror movie, or you could look deeper into it and say, okay, this is the way you do it, as like, instead of having it shoved down your throat. This is so smart. It's something else. Like I said that we were talking about it, and like Romero and them, but Cronenberg is another one that does it.
Well, yeah, of course. And to argue Jamie's point that you made earlier, this was not called art house or elevated horror at the time. I don't believe it was anyway, but this would be what we would, a movie like this nowadays would be that.
Well, that's just it. In the 70s, there was a lot of serious adult horror, but
it was adult horror. That's
right.
That's where the elevated came from. Is the fact it wasn't just aimed at teenagers.
Well,
and that's is what sort of differentiates. We still have that aspect of those movies, like we're talking about Hellfest earlier, any slasher film, the Scream series. You know, they could appease to. I'm going from a nostalgic factor and whatnot as well. But the Ari Aster films, I think, would be more considered adult horror.
Yeah, but the people in them, okay,
but there's still adult family or college kids in this case. But there's
college kids,
But
in the second one, in the first one, it was a family, and it's told from the perspective of all of them. But just because something is adult doesn't make it elevated.
No, that's true.
You know, there were a lot of things in the 70s and other times that are adult that they're not that way. I mean, look at Hammer films. They're very adult. They look good, but they're not. I wouldn't put them, you don't look too deeply like we can't have a discussion so much about horror of Dracula as much as we're talking about, you know, metaphors in this movie and relationships and things going on. And then you get that nowadays. And there are some movies nowadays where the protagonists are young, but it's still considered elevated horror. So it's still adult horror, but it's told through the eyes of, like, It Follows.
It Follows. So I was thinking that too. Yeah.
And like Midsommar, which is college kids, which typically college kids are slasher fodder. You know what I mean? Or high school.
Yeah, but
still, you get what I'm saying.
We're not talking. Yeah, exactly. We're not talking Porky's college kids. We're talking, or Porky's 3, I guess, because I think, well, I don't know. They're in high school, I think, the whole time, which is they look like they're fucking 50 in Porky's 3. Anyway, not to get off track, but this is what I think I said I'm gonna be like a broken record here. The difference is you could still watch this, because when I was a teenager getting into horror and then really checking it out, because I did check this out when I just started absorbing everything, right? Cronenberg films were some of the first I watched for whatever reason, maybe because he was Canadian, but again, I knew that, but it was more that seeing some images on TV of Videodrome that freaked me out as a kid. My dad saying, "Go, get out of the room, because you didn't have a remote control to flick the channel." So it was like more like getting up and whatever. So that I left, but I remember seeing some images that just sort of stuck in my psyche and haunted me from Videodrome. And I think they were showing them on Entertainment Tonight or something like that. So there was
Wow.
something that drew me to wanting to check that out. And then I went to check out his other films. Where I'm going with it is I took this on the nose. I was not a deep dive kid. Even in my adulthood, sometimes
No.
I can miss some points sometimes
Right,
I can fully see it. Other times I can miss it entirely, but I'll
Mm-hmm.
go back to rewatch and appreciate it accordingly. So when I was a kid, I was taking it for horror at face value. And only as going through school and rewatching it and getting older, you recognize, you're like, holy shit, there's much more going on here, of course. But I was definitely, I'd be lying to say I got that when I was watching this as a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old. I was not that advanced. I admit it, I can admit that
No.
now. I took it for, this is scary, it's gory, I had fun with it. That's
Mhm.
that's kind of where I was with my like thought process of film
Well, it's
at that
just
time.
it's your basic explanation. It's mutant children who just come out of nowhere who do some killing, as opposed to, like I said, manifestations of psyche, which we think about now. You know, I mean, there's different ways to take it. Here's a question though. I think I could be wrong. Wasn't she supposed to not have contact with the outside world? That's why the husband couldn't talk to her and everything else. And wasn't that a big deal? Like, you're not supposed to have
I believe
discussions
so.
with her
So
right now.
how did they
Why
explain?
would
I thought
she
they
have the
explained the phone.
phone
I think they
to
explained it like
call
she
the
got
woman?
away.
Oh, do they?
I
Okay.
think they throwaway line explained it or something to that effect. Because I was thinking the
Okay
same
then.
thing too. I think it was in the middle of the night and she just happened to be able to get, everyone was wondering who the hell the woman was on the phone that answered it.
Okay. Well, then that was it then. That was really, because that was something that kind of threw me off. I'm like, that's kind of weird. What's going on here? I also do like it that they discover early on, although the guy kind of recants later, which it doesn't make any sense, because when they finally get one of the kids, and they take it, and then they look into it and they say, well, this, it has no navel. This wasn't born human, right? So now
Yeah.
you're like, okay, this is more than a deformed child. This is something that's can't be. What's going on here? We're confused. Now, what are we dealing with here? Some science fiction shit. What's happening? So now later on, I don't understand why the father explains that they're deformed children that are been. And you remember, he goes, these are just deformed children. He goes, freaks that you have her taking care of up there that were born this way. I'm like, no, how could you say that after they just told you they had no navel and there's something otherworldly? That
I
was
guess
weird, I thought.
well, I think that's just the easiest way to describe what you saw, even though you're right, they're not officially children. I
And he
guess they're
knows
just
it.
deformed. I
They're
guess
not
you did
deformed
use
children.
they're deformed entities. I guess it's just, it was a simple line. I don't, maybe you're right. But I don't think there was any, again, I think it was just a simple description.
Or maybe he was saying it to him because he was saying it to the doctor, to Oliver,
Yeah.
or whatever his name is in the movie. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
yeah. Dr. Oliver Reed.
Yeah.
Lipschitz. That's
So
was his name, actually.
yeah, it was
It's
him.
funny.
He's
Doctor, it's
back.
our same doctor.
Live shits. So did you realize, or it's nothing to you because you probably still see it all the time, that when they have the attack in the beginning, not the beginning, but when the mother gets attacked, the grandmother, I suppose, and some of the stuff that's in the thing, something falls to the ground and it's fucking Shreddies. Is Shreddies still a cereal in Canada?
It is. I
Okay.
believe. I never liked Shreddies, but
Good whole
yeah,
wheat Shreddies. Remember that?
yeah,
Good
yeah.
whole
Oh
wheat
yeah.
Shreddies. Yeah. Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's still a thing. I actually, yeah, I could say yes, it is still a thing.
I
But
never think about Shreddies until you know what I mean? Because
yeah, Canadiana.
I yeah, it's funny, man. And I do not think, and I know it's another complaint, but I don't think that the daughter is the strongest actress, and I don't understand why when the daughter sees her grandmother get killed, she's just kind of fucking. There was like no reaction from her. She walks in there, there's no shock, there's no nothing. She's just okay, just chill as fuck. I go, why would they make that decision to make her chill? I don't think
Yeah,
maybe it's not that she's not the best performer. Maybe it's just in the direction of it. Because why wouldn't you have her she gives no emotion. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I'm not picturing the scene right now because I apologize. Like I said, I watched it like
Yeah.
3 weeks ago, like when we thought it was going to be the next show
Right.
and whatever. So I can't remember exactly the reaction shot, unfortunately, but yeah, it would be weird if you've seen like, but again, just maybe that no
Well,
reaction because you can't believe what you're seeing before your eyes.
just in general, even later on when the guy gets her out, when her father and whatever, and they're taking her out, she doesn't seem to show a whole lot of emotion with things. I don't know. I don't know what the deal was, and I thought there might have been an explanation, but there really wasn't. So
Well, I think yeah,
know.
you almost get the impression that she's not 100% there,
Yeah,
but
but
they don't give you, yeah, they don't necessarily.
almost like she's autistic.
I know the scene you're talking about now because I've seen that, like, yes, like that, almost that, like there's there's
Yeah.
just a bit of a disconnect. And
Even when he's washing her back and she's home with the father and this, she doesn't really talk much.
Just very, very, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder what that is.
Non-responsive. Yeah. I think it was just a choice just made. And I think that's just led to the more of the innocence of that.
Well, maybe he does have wooden actors sometimes. And that's why I said I like the lead father in this one as compared to like the lead in Scanners and even the lead in Dead Ringers. I think that their
Jeremy
delivery,
Irons?
well, it's very deadpan delivery. Now, as the movie goes on, and maybe that's why. Maybe that's to prove, and we'll get to it when we get to it in a minute. Yeah. I'm just saying, maybe there was a reason for it, but I think that actually I'll save it. So, I don't know. It's just something that I thought about with the daughter, but I think it's funny that the one girl, speaking of that phone call, the fucking phone's ringing. And she calls, and then the second time it rings, she just covers it with a pillow to stop the ring. Why not just unplug the fucking thing or take it off the hook? She covers.
Why not use that excuse to say I'm just babysitting your daughter because your husband had to run away? Like, I'm just here as the babysitter. You freaked me out, but you're right. Right. It's just I guess it's just human reaction. Who knows why we do certain things? I've done stupid things. I'm like, why did I do that? Like, why the hell did I do that?
I just couldn't help but notice it. I'm like, that's a weird reaction, but yeah, I'm not knocking the movie whatsoever. There's just a couple things that, I mean, there's so much to get into, but we're not gonna. I mean, the psychoplasmics and what's going on with that, and then he dumps all of his students just for her. You kind of feel bad for that, Well, but he doesn't seem interested in her.
The biggest success as well, it's more about, I think, his work and the fact that what his theories and whatnot are producing from her. Maybe everybody else is more of a reject. It hasn't really manifested the way that it's supposed to, and this one has been. But what the outcome is supposed to be, I guess he becomes in that mad scientist sort of realm. Mad doctor.
Yeah, again, and he cares about his work. But he's never at any time
trying to help. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's helping anybody.
Yeah. But I don't know. At least he's not trying to seduce her or something. Like I thought maybe he would. He still defends the father.
Yeah.
And defends her father as well.
And it's an hour and a half, and it clicks along really well because sometimes I find movies from, like, certain movies from the 70s I find could be a little bit slower paced and whatnot, but this one, it seems like it's just perfectly paced. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and it delivers the goods, and the goods are delivered in short little sequences. It's not dwelled upon so much, but it makes them even more effective, I think.
I agree completely. Yes, that's well said. That's exactly what it is. It's just what you want to see. You get a couple good kills and interesting story, characters you care about. It does. It clicks along. It does. It's just, and a lot of his movies are longer, but this one is a good pace.
Well, that was the point I was going to make, and then I forgot what it was when we were talking about the last thing. It was that this movie, I think, had a budget of 1.4 million. People were saying it's very low. It was very low budget. I feel like that was a very decent budget for a horror film in 1979. I could be wrong, but it seems like maybe on the lower side. But when you hear low budget, you think of Halloween, $300,000 or whatever it may be.
The hell it was.
And and this was like quite a bit larger budget than that. Like even if it was 600, like it's over double that. Like it. So for me, it seems like a big budget, but I think his budget's just increased as his success continued. So Videodrome and of course the Dead Zone would have been
or
Banners had more than Videodrome, the Dead Zone, and then of course The Fly would have been one of his biggest and or Dead Ringers, and continue there. But as you're building, I still think 1.4 was a decent amount.
Man.
People said it was limited based on its budget. I don't necessarily agree with that, but unless I hear that right from Cronenberg's mouth, I didn't have enough money to do exactly what I wanted to do. I think he got everything he needed to get across perfectly fine.
I agree with that. Yeah. I don't know what's lacking. The makeup is fine, especially in the climax. Maybe the guy earlier on when he shows his thing on his throat, now that, we have this on Blu-ray and stuff like that, it looks a little faker than it used to, but that's about all I can say. But big deal. It's not funny.
But it's still sickly. Holy crap.
No, I agree.
That stuff is the stuff like that's the stuff that does, like I said earlier, gets under your skin when you see it. Yeah, it's like the deformity thing that you have.
Right.
Yeah. And when you realize that it wasn't there before and it was created, it makes it even more like, oh.
Yeah, it's a scary looking thing. Yeah, gross. So,
yeah, I enjoy this. It's like you said, I think you summed it up great. I don't think there's a bad Cronenberg film, even though I wasn't as high on Crimes of the Future last year as some people were, and whatever. I just thought it was decent. I liked what he was going with, but the movie itself I thought was a little dry. But this one was a solid 8.
Wow, that's what I have it at an 8. It's always basically been right there for me. Yep.
Yeah. It's at that great range, but it's just right
on.
I think that's a perfectly good rating for it.
Yes, sir.
If you have to give a number.
Yeah, that's it. That's the number. I'm really curious about the Dead Ringers though with you and what you're gonna.
Let me bring that up. I'm not as high on it as you might think.
Well,
but I do really like it. And
truth be told, I saw this only for the first time within like the last 5 years. Something about it just never appealed to me. And I watched it like maybe 5 years ago or something for the first time. And maybe longer, maybe like 7 years. And going into it this time, I wasn't looking forward to it because I was kind of bored with it the first time. But I didn't dislike it. That's what I'm saying. I didn't have it.
Let me introduce it, and then we could go. Yeah. I don't. It makes it easier for when I'm editing too. So, Dead Ringers, 1988. Twin gynecologists take full advantage of the fact that nobody can tell them apart until the relationship begins to deteriorate over a woman. And it was directed by David Cronenberg, and the writing credits go to David Cronenberg, Norman Schneider, and Barry Wood. And it was based on a novel called Twins, which was loosely based on twin gynecologists in New York that died under mysterious circumstances, and I think, well, drug-induced, but were found together dead, I believe. What? And so he took the basic premise of that, but created a whole different spin in his film. So he took the idea of twin gynecologists. Now they're working, I believe, in Toronto in the version. I believe maybe it's Manhattan. I'm getting confused now because I watched the show as well, as I mentioned. But I think in this movie they're in Toronto and they're renowned, and then they're found, of course, as we know at the end, dead together. But let's go. So sorry, I did cut you off there. You said you weren't interested in revisiting this.
I wasn't overly enthusiastic about it. Yeah, I was like, well, all right, let's check it out again. Because the last time, I'm not saying I didn't like it. Like, I didn't rate it as low as I would rate another one. I was like, yeah, it was good. And I remember like being confused at the ending, but I didn't have a memory of what, like, if you asked me to say what was Dead Ringers all about, I wouldn't have been able to tell you. Kind of like the problem that I used to have with Leatherface Part 3, the third Texas Chainsaw movie, how I would watch it and not remember anything about it. That's what happened. Again, I've only seen it once prior to this, and I didn't remember anything about it. I just remembered what if I had a rating or how I felt, but that was it. And going into it, I wasn't like over enthusiastic. Now I have the Blu-ray. Do you think they have that story on the Blu-ray? What you're talking about is a special feature, or do you have this Blu-ray?
I don't know if they have the story of it on the
Because
Blu-ray.
I'm
No, I don't.
really curious about this, like these book twins and this real case. Now,
I had the
usually,
book Twins. My mom had the book Twins, and I had it
huh?
for years. But it's one of those things that wasn't sold or auctioned off on eBay like my Laserdisc. It was something that just got lost within multiple moves. But I unless it's buried in a bin of books that I still have, but I believe it was lost. And I remember having that book and knowing that Cronenberg based his film off of that, but of course not about like the experimentation of these new tools created to operate on mutant women and all that. That's purely from the mind of Cronenberg.
Okay, yeah. And I don't know if I have the Shout Factory, or I think the one I had was overseas. I just can't remember what it was, but I'm just curious because now I didn't get a chance to watch the special features, but I wonder if there is discussion on that with the book and the true story that it's based on. Because now I'm really intrigued now
I'm
about
more
that.
intrigued about the fact that it's one actor playing twins. His performance is 10
Yeah.
out of 10 for me. 10 out of 10. So that's why it took a little, I was like, what? Before, like, his performance is what makes this movie for me. Because I do find the movie kind of dry. It's long, it's a little drab. I find the soundtrack very with a lot of dead spots. Not the music. Music's great. I'm just talking about the soundtrack, as in the actual
score
sound. There's a lot of dead spots. So it adds to that feeling
it's clinical.
Yeah, but I guess that's the thought process. It's lit very clinical. Everything seems to be sterile and clean, and I think that was obviously, like, it goes without saying that was a choice based on their work and everything else. His performance is very clinical. His performance is I that's what makes the movie. I think you have to be sold on his performance and the camera tricks that they use to deliver that. Again, back in 1988, where it was a little bit more about framing and whatnot and acting as opposed to CGI effects to create the illusion of.
Yep.
So when they did the show, to compare it to the show, and again, this whole thing's not going to be a comparison to the show. Rachel Weisz, or whatever the fuck I have to say her name, she said that there was a stand-in that they hired on that was perfect, and she says she owes as much to her stand-in for the performance as she did, because they'd have to work off each other. But she has to play both roles, but the stand-in would fill in for the other version. And no differently, there was a stand-in obviously used in many scenes here that they had to film around. But so again, a lot of the structure, a lot of the shot choices come from the fact that they worked around that too. And I thought that was very intriguing because I like that aspect of the film as well. I do like that they play the old switcheroo and nobody could tell them apart. And and again, it's this love of this dysfunctional actress that kind of sends their whole world into a downward spiral. And again, it's almost like they share the same mind, yet they're two separate people. But at the end, it's almost like they convince themselves that they've got to be one.
It just kind of came out of nowhere because for the longest time in the movie, you kind of see Bev as one thing and Elliot as another, right? And then it gets to the point where Bev falls, head over heels, and he says, "I want to keep this just for me." And they haven't done that before. And he's all about this actress for some reason. And then he gets on the pills and everything else. And I could see that. But then it comes to the point where Elliot says, "Okay, I have to get him help. I'm going to lock him in here, do this, get him off the pills and whatever." And since he doesn't want to share her, or she doesn't want to share me with my brother, I don't know about this relationship, and I'm not really into her all that much. I know he is, but it's like, it seems like he is trying to right the wrongs that have been done here and the mistakes that like Bev has made and what's going on with him. And then this is my critique. It seems like one scene, and for a while everything's playing one
flip
way,
flop,
and then immediately the girl comes in, the other girl that Elliot seems to date, in the redhead girl, and she comes in and says, all of a sudden, she says something to her, and she's like, I can't tell the difference between you and Bev anymore. And then all of a sudden he comes up and he says, well, he took these 3 pills at this time, so I got to take these pills now. And it just seemed like it spun on a dime.
I
like
get
all
you.
of a sudden, what brought you to this? If you always have to do it, why did you do it that way? How come? Okay, so you get me. I don't have to.
I know. I get you. I get you because
confusing.
it's the same critique I have. I just going to sound very weird, but with the arc in Christine for Artie, the main guy, the main kid, I find that he's like kind of like that geeky normal kid for a bit, and then it's almost like boom, he's Mr. Slick.
But that's possession. I could understand that.
Okay, then so be it. So this one I agree, and I think this is where the show excels a little bit. And I know I've read people say no, this is the show is just doesn't hold the candle to it, but because it's got time to breathe, I think does the sort of transition better because it's got time to do it. So you're still under the guise of a 2-hour-long movie. And I will admit they needed maybe 1 or 2 more anchor scenes to show that transformation a bit more.
Yeah.
And I do agree that it's a little flippant, and then suddenly it's almost like they went the first 2 acts one way, and the last act to speed it up went extra quick, where it was almost like they needed to almost do it the halfway point. So I'm not going to disagree with you. I don't blame that on his performance, though. I blame that I blame it on the fact that, and it's not a blame, but I think it's just at the mercy of the script and the timing of the film. So I believe they were trying to get across that this has been happening, but admittedly, I can't disagree with you. I think it was a bit flippant. So you have to accept that sort of flippant nature for you to allow to go into it. And then it's almost like Elliot has taken on the role of Beverly at this point, and he downward spirals, and Beverly sort of comes out of it and then realizes that he can't be without his brother. And then that's where we realize at the end they do what he does. He goes back to try to live life, because there's that scene where Elliot now Elliot is dead, has been killed. And Beverly goes out to kind of live his life, even calls is it Genevieve, the actress, and then ultimately realizes that he can't, it's just not going to work, and then goes back to the room with his brother and then kills himself.
I don't know what led them to that, and what all of a sudden, even with the he got those tools made for the gynecology for mutant women or something, and I thought he something was going on because that girl had 3 somethings or whatever, and whatever. I wasn't thinking. I think it was just about it.
I think it was just he was going insane. I think that level of intelligence, there was a downward spiral, and they started with the fact that we already know they've been switching. So they've been sharing personalities, essentially. And again, if you want to look at it in Cronenberg's terms, I guess it's essentially a manifestation or an actual personality switcheroo in a sense that they have kind of, because they've been swapping, it actually ends up happening, but over a course of time. And when Beverly was going down that downward spiral, I think it was him thinking that the work needed to evolve. And that's where he starts asking not anybody that would work on medical tools, but an artist to create these tools for him, because nobody else will. And they're not thinking outside the box. And this artist creates them for him, and he ends up using them, which is one of the most cringe-inducing sequences, or in that sequence where you don't really see anything so much. You just the way it's filmed, and you're just like you're squirming in your seat. And I think it throws him off the rails again when he's out and about and he sees that the artist has displayed them as his creations for his show, for his art show. Or or studio or whatever it will be, and then he breaks in and or goes in, steals them, and just leaves
That was cool
to have them. But I
Yeah.
really think I'm not going to disagree with you that the transition may be quick, but I think if you really dissect it, they've already were transitioning from the beginning.
No,
But the
that's
transition within the
fair.
film, I agree, was maybe seemingly was pretty quick.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden they started talking about Chang and Aang all the time, and then it became this thing. I'm like, where's this even coming from? And then then later on, first
Oh, I
he
love
says
that
that,
part, actually.
they're for this, and then he says when the girl asks him, because these are for separating Siamese twins. I'm like, what the? So I didn't understand when we get to the climax what we're going for. Is what I get at. Just because they're both suddenly, okay, not suddenly, just because one's become addicted to pills, now the other one's decided to join him on this because they want to feel the same all the time, and that's so be it.
They're like mental Siamese twins, I guess. They're
No, I
mentally
get
connected.
that.
And
Yeah.
I guess taking that and essentially almost wanting to be physical. And then that's why they bring up those two famous Siamese twins,
So
and they
why did he
talked about
die?
how, because the one twin said to the other that, I guess I can't remember verbatim the poem that they read there, but essentially if one dies, I need to die, or I can't live without you.
Right, but they said we're gonna kick on Monday. So what they said right before they went into that freaking thing they did at the end, when they took when he gave him whatever intravenously and they're laying on the table, literally right before they did that, they said, okay, we're gonna do this, this, and this, and we're gonna kick Monday. And the Monday they were gonna freaking get clean. So why do you go from that conversation right to this guy killing himself or whatever happened there? And why is he all bloody and shit?
Maybe
And why
that's
come
what
when
they
the guy
meant.
got up,
Maybe that was what
couldn't
they
find
meant,
him?
that they said, we're going to get clean because we're going to become one and you're going to live. And then he couldn't do it. So
Maybe.
that went, the downward spiral continued. They offed one because he was now Bev and whatnot. And then Bev tried to go live life and realized it's just a facade. He can't do it without Elliot. And it didn't work the way that they said. And then he went back and then killed himself. And that's why we get that last scene of them essentially conjoined, even though they're not. They're just laying on top of one another.
And then why at the end, why does he stand up and he goes, Ellie, Ellie, and the guy's right behind him, all fucking covered in blood, and he doesn't turn around once, and he walks out the door, doesn't even look for him. It just seems just weird. That was the problem I had the first time. I don't understand what they're doing here.
No,
that's it.
There is weird. Cronenberg has always had a bit of weird within within his films too. So I can't explain it. I can't explain all of it.
Just making sure
I think,
I'm not missing something here.
No,
that's all I'm asking for.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things where, yeah, the act happened, but he's in a different mindset at that time, and then that's it. But I actually, again, verbatim, I'm going to be, like I said, a broken fucking record. I do feel like sometimes the show kind of improved on some of these elements, not all of them, but some of these elements, and definitely up the horror ante, with still giving you enough Easter eggs for fans of the film and for Cronenberg. So the haters of the show, I'm a little surprised about, because I thought it was a love note to Cronenberg as well. But I actually think the show, for me, was a little bit more successful with the twin element, personally. But I do love Jeremy Irons' performance. But overall, the film I don't rate much higher than The Brood, to be honest. But I do enjoy the film, but it's not a film I would revisit as often.
Yeah,
it's just a little too dry for me. But when I watched it, and every time I've watched it, I've loved it, and I feel like I pull something more out of it each time, which is, I guess, what you want from a film.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's cool for sure. And I feel like I'm gonna watch it again. I just want to know the answers to some things, and when I can't get them, it's a little frustrating. It's typically the ending. It just seems like it all of a sudden, and it does. I'm not knocking the first 2/3 of it. I enjoyed the performance. Is great. I mean, he's great in that position, in that part, and everything that's going on. And when he has the drunk speech, and although there was a point where I for the first time, like in the second act, I couldn't determine who was who. Like, even though I thought that the one brother was being
that's great.
locked
That
up.
they did that on purpose. That part I think was
Okay.
done totally on purpose, so that you didn't know who we were watching all the time. And that's the genius of Cronenberg's directing, is that it is blurred. The lines of who Beverly and Elliot are blurred to help deliver to the end here. But I'm not going to say that the actual transition was a little abrupt internally. But as I keep saying that, I'm thinking of the specific scene that you're talking about or whatnot, but it's already been happening from before we come into the movie, with the whole switcheroo personality of I've had her first. If you would never get laid if it wasn't for me, and everything else. Like they've already laid all the groundwork, and that we're coming into their lives at this particular point. So they're already kind of diseased. And I do like this mentally conjoined aspect I'm coming up. So maybe he's asking for Ellie, as in calling out like, Ellie, are you here with me? But he's not. And then he leaves and tries to see what happens, and realizes it's not going to be what they thought it was going to be. And so the only way that they can end it is by doing what he did and going back to his brother and dying there.
Man,
that's the only way I can describe it. Like, because I'm not a scholar in the sense of like, I can only deep dive so much before I'm just going to have to regurgitate something that I read.
No, that's
and I
cool.
didn't want to read up on this one much at all, because I knew I'd fall into that trap. I really did, because I was like, there's more there. So I'm just like, what can I take from that? And the movie does it great. I think the show does it great. It will be interesting. I really do wish other people will check it out and weigh in on what they think, whether they like it better than the movie or not. Besides the point, just if they've enjoyed the show and the way that was presented.
Yeah. Is the show going to be a one take thing? It's just going to be one.
I don't know. I told you they alluded to, it was in an interview, but the interview it wasn't answered directly. So the show could be a one take done, and I think it should be, but they alluded that there could be a window of opportunity. But I think a one and done is the way to go.
Right on. You know what else I was thinking? The guy hired two escorts to have sex with them, and they were twins. I thought that was weird. And then I said, you call me Bev and you call me Elliot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, that's kind of twisted. It's almost like you would think that he would not want to have sex with twins, being a twin himself, unless it was him and his brother with two twins.
But that's exactly,
it seemed odd. Right.
That's reinforcing that whole thematic element of him wanting to be like one of the same. The Bev and Elliot being one of the same. It just that's another. Yeah. Talking it out, it does really. There is a lot more to it, even though it is very dramatic, and it's much more dramatic than it is horror. But the 100%. Horror elements are there. The horror elements are there. I even love like the scenes of horror that stand out are them cloaked in red.
Yeah.
It just as instead of white garments, red. I thought that was weird. Cool. Yeah, but cool.
Yeah, no, cool. I was just at the time thinking that's how they have their freaking surgeon's dress. I was like, okay.
No, I think that was a Cronenberg aspect. I think it just that really leads to the sort of like that just horrific vision as well. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you have a lot more. I honestly think if you haven't checked it out, check it out, knowing that you're going to be in for a slower movie, but I still think a rewarding movie.
Yeah,
for most, unless you just can't, unless you need action and gore to cling on to, then it might not be for you. But if you like something that's a little bit more cerebral, and I hate saying it like that, but I mean, again, that you get thinking and appreciate it for maybe even for the performances and the direction, then check it out.
Yeah, it's more interesting as a drama than a horror movie, I think. I mean, it's cool. They have the horror elements which are cool and at work, but if you're not a horror fan, you could watch this movie as almost like watching Requiem for a Dream type thing. and then it just gets
or nowadays anything on
shit.
TV. The gore is a
Yeah.
minimal, save for a dream sequence and some of the uncomfortable operation, but the operation stuff is not really shown in any great detail. I think there's a drip of blood and whatnot. Like a lot of that is left to your imagination, but there's some squirm-inducing sequences in this as well. And that one dream that just kind of really ties it all together with the conjoined, because they're physically conjoined in that dream and whatnot as well. So 8.5 out of 10.
8.5, huh?
Yeah.
I say
so I was
7.
a little higher than
yeah.
Sorry. I'm
a little low. Well, I'm a little low. I'm 7.5, but
that's fine. It's still good.
Yeah, man. Yeah. For some reason I feel like watching it again, so that's good. Before, like I said, coming into it, I wasn't really looking forward to it, but now that we're talking about it, I'm thinking about like, yeah. And now that I have it fresh in my head, what's going to happen, I think I kind of want to watch it unfold now again.
Well,
that's just how I am.
Yeah, I've always, like, again, I'll even bring up the cinematography again, is just that it does have that sterile element to it. And I think that really sort of adds another element to the film too. But the performances, like I've said it numerous times already. I think to watch it for that. He didn't win. I think he may have been nominated for that, but he won the following year. So Jeremy Irons won an Oscar the following year for a film called Reversal of Fortune, which I don't think I've ever seen, but he thanked David Cronenberg in his speech accepting the award for that because of the acclaim he got for his portrayal in Dead Ringers.
Wow, that's cool, man. Wow, and this was 88, right? 1988?
Yeah, 88. Yeah, so I guess Reversal of Fortune was 89. I think that was the name of the movie. 70? I'm going totally by memory.
What's 79, The Brood?
Yeah, so almost a decade apart.
Yeah, interesting. That's cool, though. I'm glad we got to watch it again, primarily for Dead Ringers, because I've seen The Brood enough times. But still, I still got a little more out of it this time, so that was good, too. So, right on. So I guess we don't have to have a drawing because we're going to do Summer Sausage. Or maybe we'll figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So we're starting with Bloodlines?
Yeah.
For Hellraiser
4.
Hellraiser, Bloodlines, and Frankenstein.
Yeah, what a combination.
The
OG. Yeah, the OG. So, yeah.
Cool.
I'm kind of excited. Yeah. Okay, maybe we'll have guests. People keep mentioning guests.
Yeah.
For a lot of things we're doing. Maybe we will. See. Who wants to watch these movies? And maybe we won't. Whatever. I don't know. We'll see what happens, Right now, I just want to get through this weekend. I'll tell you that much. I'm freaking tired.
Then I'll let you. We'll sign off. Monchichi.
Thank you. All right. That's it. He says it. That's it. Well, we love you guys. Peace out.